All right, all right. It is Friday night. Hello, everybody. My name is Alan here at Heavy Metallurgy. As always, looking forward to having a fun heavy metal themed conversation with everybody. I hope everyone's had a really good week. It's getting close to summertime. Temperatures are warming up. Hopefully, everybody is out and about and having some good times. Hopefully, the weather is nice where you're at. It's nice where I've been at. And Marty, my co host, how's the weather been where you're at?
It's been crap. It's been sunny and it's been in the 90s. Today was 97. Yesterday was about 95. And I'm a screen printer, as some of you know. Some of you may not know. And my garage is easily over 100 degrees. And yeah, you can imagine the moisture that develops.
Yep.
It's not a good scene. And I'm a fall winter guy. I love summer, but can't take the bugs. I can't take the heat. So yeah, I'm going to be the first to complain. So there it is.
That's kind of crazy. You're probably 500 miles north of me and you're 20 degrees hotter today
Oh
than
my
we
God,
are here in the South. So
it's been brutal. I don't know what the hell's going on.
That's a little messed up, but
yes.
Yep, we'll get through it one way or the other. Now, be glad to see folks starting to fill in over here in the chat. To hello to everybody. Marty and
Hello,
I
everyone.
will, of course, be interacting with you as time and opportunity allows, but we've already got 22 folks aboard. Hello, Tim. Hello, Michael. Mel's in the comments.
Hey,
hello, Mel. So yeah, everybody jump in there. Metal Mayhem just joined. Good to see you tonight. So yeah, hop in, have some fun, take it easy. Work week is done. The weekend's coming up, and what better way to kick it off than talking about a little bit of heavy metal stuff? Before we bring in our guest and introduce our topic, we do have a couple of our general announcements that we like to make. So, Marty, I'll throw it back over to you for those. Marty's got some cool stuff to advertise here.
Yeah, I forgot to bring it down with me to show, but everyone, the Nachachuan Kanawha Black LP with CD in it is released today. It turned out amazing. It's an amazing album. So proud to be working with these guys, and they're available pre-orders. I've got a whole truckload to take to the post office tomorrow. I'm working at it. There's still a couple hundred to go through on Bandcamp, shirts to print. Been super busy. So yeah, I mean, if you don't get I'm sorry I didn't get it right on release day. It just didn't work out for me. But next week I should be getting it all done and taken care of and shipped out. So keep your eyes on the mailbox. It's coming. You'll be getting a tracking number. And also we've got Heavy Metallurgy shirts, which in streaming there is no law. Links in the description. And if you want to donate to the channel, we've got super chats available. I know that rubs some people the wrong way. Some people dig it. Either way, you don't have to pay anything. Just enjoy. But if you feel like it, it's going to a good cause. But our guest, super great guy. He is Darcy from 6 Strings 9 Live's YouTube channel. The link is in the description. Let's get this gentleman on here with us.
Absolutely.
Darcy.
Hey, guys.
How's it going,
Darcy.
man?
How's everybody doing?
2 thumbs up. Can't
Very
complain.
good. Very good.
Yeah, Marty is hot and sweaty, but sounds like he's doing pretty good as well.
It's not even June and central air is turned on, so that's I'm not even going to deal with it.
I'm with you with the heat and the bugs, but it has been pouring rain here all day, and I would welcome some sunlight at this point.
Yep.
But I just want to thank you guys for having me on, and yes, get your Metallurgy shirt here, your Heavy Metallurgy shirt. I'm gonna plug that myself because it's a great shirt. It is very well made and fits like a glove, just not too tight of a glove, I hope. But yeah.
Yep. Well, we've got glove sizes for every hand. That's all I got to say. But yeah, thanks for joining us, man. I've been watching you for how long have you been doing it now? How long has the channel been going?
Coming up, I think it'll be 4 years in June. Yeah, but probably 3rd week of June. I think the anniversary is coming up. So hey there.
Yep, Darcy's you're a YouTube veteran at this point.
Absolutely.
Sure. Well, you know what? When I started doing this, I never really knew what it was going to go into, or, I'm just here to have fun. And that's pretty much how I approach everything. I I'm sure you guys have felt a little pressure in the past of maybe coming up with some content or doing some videos, and all that is gone. I just turn on the camera, press record, and whatever happens. I don't
I do
spend
too.
a lot of time editing, but I want to congratulate you guys too, though. 54 episodes. Man, time flies. First of all, I was like, wow, this only seems like you just started doing this together like a little while ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right.
Episodes.
Yeah,
Yep.
we looked up one night and it's like, holy crap, tomorrow's like the 1 year anniversary of the first, wasn't Heavy Metallurgy at the time, but the first, stream that became a weekly thing. So yeah, thanks for that. It's been a fun ride for sure. Absolutely.
Definitely look forward to your streams, you guys. You do a great job.
Oh, you're too kind. And we'll send a check for your advertising of the shirt and your kind words.
No.
But we appreciate it. We've had a really great time. We've had a lot of great people on. We've got a really good foundation of people that we can bring in, and there'll be more. We'll be getting more and more people coming in as we go, and it's been a gas. We also do Wednesday nights, and Alan and I have been talking about maybe doing some other stuff here and there too. So we're just going to keep plugging along. People seem to like it. So we're going to, talking, sharing our opinions on music and turning people on to other things is a lot of fun.
Well, if you're ever stuck for a guest and you've called absolutely everybody and they're all busy, I'll fill in. Don't worry. Let me know.
You're in the loop, man. You're in the loop.
Yeah. And if by chance anybody watching out there has not checked out Darcy's channel, definitely do so. He's got tons of great content. For example, he recently did a ranking for Rage, the German legendary band. It was a great video. I really liked watching your take and listening.
I think I missed that one. Holy shit. That's tomorrow. I'll watch that tomorrow.
You've got something to watch this weekend.
It was kind of my take on the earlier years of Rage. Just I came up with an idea. I just wanted to thank the viewers for bands that they've gotten me into. Even you guys have gotten me into bands. So, yeah.
So did you do the whole catalog or just the early stuff?
No, it was more or less. What did I even call that? I think my series is called bands that I personally wouldn't know about without you. And Rage was the first one. The actual last full ranking I did was the Raven discography.
Oh, right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that one too. Shit.
I kind of mixed those together. Yeah, the Raven one was excellent, and the Rage. That's a neat topic, and yeah, Rage was a great one to include.
Don't worry, Marty. I know you literally can't watch everybody. It is impossible.
I watch your stuff. I've just been so damn busy. I miss shit, and I subscribe to so many people.
Oh, I know.
It like pushes. I mean, it gets pushed down if I don't see it right away, and half the time I fall asleep in front of the TV watching shit every night anyway. So, but yeah, no, I'll get caught up for sure. But yeah, everybody, please do check out Darcy 6 Strings 9 Lives. I do have the link in the description. He would like some more subs, and he's offering some good content and opinions on some very killer music. He's also involved with on occasion with the guys out in England on Contact in Blood.
Really fun stream they do over there.
Hey, Jurgen, what's up, man? Good to see you.
Jurgen.
Always good to see you, Jurgen.
Alan, you want to take us into this? I just want to come out and say up front that.
Yeah, I gotta get ready here. So yeah, go ahead.
I'm relatively new to Savatage. I've had Hall of the Mountain King for a long time. I enjoy that record, and I just kind of picked up the most of their catalog last year. So revisiting some of these albums this week has been kind of a running the gauntlet. So my knowledge is pretty superficial. So these guys are the ones that are going to be towing the line tonight. I'm just going to sit here and look pretty. Alan, good luck with the bad luck you're going to get now for doing that little gag there.
But Marty.
Yeah.
Ask me why I have an umbrella.
Why do you have an umbrella?
What are we talking about tonight?
Savatage.
And what happens when you talk about Savatage? Madness reigns.
Oh, okay.
In the Hall of the Mountain King.
Yeah, getting ready for a shitstorm. Yeah.
We may catch some of that too, depending on how these rankings go. But yes,
Exactly.
tonight we are talking about sort of legendary American metal band Savatage, and the way this topic came up was a little different than usual. Usually, we reach out to different people and ask them what they would like to talk about, and kind of work together to find a topic that we can all converse on pretty well. But in this case, I did a video a couple of months ago. Kind of just a brief history of Savatage, working through their discography chronologically. They're a band I've loved since high school, so I know their stuff pretty well. And Darcy left a very kind comment on it and mentioned that he was thinking about doing a ranking of Savatage albums in the near future. And I was just like, oh, that would be so cool to do with him on a stream. And so I replied back, like, hey, if you'd be interested in doing that together, let me know. If not, no worries. Not trying to steal your idea or step on your toes or anything like that. But it just seems like it'd be a really cool one to do. I enjoy your videos. I've seen you on other streams. So I just kind of threw the idea out there. And yep, Darcy sounded interested. We just had to wait till calendars lined up. But here we are at long last to do some Savatage. So Darcy, I take it you like Savatage.
Definitely. And you'll see throughout this ranking kind of where my heart lies with Savatage, and there's definitely a couple turning points, which Alan knows exactly what I am saying, but we'll kind of explain as we go, and kind of as usual, start with our least favorite to our favorite. And I gotta say, it's not a massive catalog, but I think we agreed earlier that we would include the EP, The Dungeons Are Calling. It's pretty much, if everybody's prepared for that, I think we are.
Yes.
But it's pretty much, in today's world, almost a full album anyways. I mean, it's about 25, 26 minutes long. But there's only 12 to cover, some peaks and valleys as with any band, but there's some significant peaks and valleys with some key members, things like that. So am I starting tonight?
You are, sir.
Yep.
Okay.
But yes, you're right, Darcy, because Savatage is a band who this ranking's a little hard to do because there is a big stylistic shift when you go from the 80s to the 90s, and so it's kind of hard. You're comparing apples and oranges when you start comparing some of these albums. It's like, I like this album for these reasons and that album for very different reasons, which made it a little more challenging to rank than I thought it would be at first.
The thing that's pretty interesting about that whole change is they were kind of heading in this direction, it seems anyway. But after the passing of Chris Oliva, sorry, it was a very... They definitely locked into that transition, I think, in the later part of their career. And we'll get into it, but that was a massive, I mean, obviously a very spiritual blow to the band. I mean, his brother John and Chris were the two leading force of this band. And you could tell the spirit of the band changed a lot. Whether, it probably depends on where you jump in on this band. You might like the latter half of their catalog more than the first. I mean, there's a definite difference there, and but we'll get into all that tonight. I just wanted to make that one connection as to why. I mean, like I said, they were starting to kind of head in a more operatic direction, it seems. But as soon as Chris passed, it seems like it was cemented in stone that was going to be the case. But anyway, sorry, interject there.
They've definitely, guys, they've always been one of those bands where I felt they were on the verge of, just skyrocketing, and then tragedy struck, things like that. But always one of those bands where it was tough to really categorize them, for me, like a band like Armored Saint. Exactly where do you put them? Exactly where do you put Savatage? And it seems like a lot of these bands that, like Savatage, ended up in the US power metal kind of category when there's really a lot more to them. But I'm happy with that label for them. That's fine too. But I think you'd probably agree with that, Alan.
Yep. Yep, that's a very good point. Something else someone just brought up here in the chat. Jurgen pointed out, yeah, there's a lot of side projects with Savatage, with John Oliver's Pain, Dr. Butcher. Those we're not going into tonight. There's all kinds of little side branches that would make it a little difficult to wrangle through. So we're just going to do the Savatage titles themselves. But yeah, a lot of folks do really enjoy some of those other projects that the band's been involved in. Chris and John were in bands before the Savatage name got applied. They did a single under the name Metropolis in the late 70s. They, of course, started out doing stuff, as Avatar when they started getting more serious and into metal in the earliest 80s. And, switched their name to the much more unique and iconic Savatage and carried on from there. But yeah, we will stick to just, the Savatage material for this evening to keep it to a relatively sane length.
Yeah, I'll just throw this in before. So those of you who don't know, they started off as the band Avatar, and very close to the release date of their debut Sirens, they found out, sure enough, there's another band named Avatar. So what they did is they slapped an S in front of the A over here, and they said Savatar. Well, that didn't sound very good. So they dropped the R and they put Taj on the end. And there we go. We have Savatage. And they do refer to themselves as Taj, in, interviews, things like that. So that's kind of how they came about their name. So kind of unique. So there's a little bit of trivia for you.
So let me ask you this, Darcy. I remember watching a video of Alan's here not too long ago. He talked about that Avatar single quite extensively and saying how incredibly rare it is. Is that a reissue, or is that
actually this
a real deal?
This is this is a reissue. This came with I bought the reissue of Sirens and with the original cover, which you'll see in a little while. You're not going to see that right off the bat. So that's your only hint. This came with it. This was a replica of the original 7-inch single.
Cool.
Of City Beneath the Surface, Sirens, and the song The Whip, which is actually on
Power of the Night. No, it's on Dungeons Are Calling.
It's on Dungeons Are Calling. So yeah, so no, I don't have the official original deal, but glad to have this for sure. It's feels like a little piece of history.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, there is if folks are curious, the video Marty is referring to I made a while back, there was the original pressing of the single was limited to 1,000 copies, but there is a very rare variant on it. Just a few copies came that are a bit different and unique. So if you're interested in that kind of detail for collectors, you can check that out over on my channel if you got some time to watch it. It's a very interesting story. It's one of those records I got kind of obsessed with and have tracked through the ages. Jurgen has helped me with that, with a lot of tidbits on that particular weird version of the Avatar single. So thanks for that information, Jurgen. So yeah, there's definitely some weird collector's items tied to this band too, for those folks that like to go in that direction with their music collection.
Right on. Well, without further ado, shall we jump into this? Darcy, are you ready?
You bet. So we got 12 things to rank, and my number coming in at last place, I'm afraid. A couple things bother me about this one, but my least favorite Savatage is The Wake of Magellan. When did this one come out? I made sure I have the dates because you draw a blank on camera. So
it came out in 97.
Yeah, this came out in 97. Wasn't released till 1998 in the US. I don't know if at that point it was probably a distribution thing, and was originally released in Japan and Europe in 97, and then early 98 for North America. But this one, it's a concept. It's one of I guess four true concept albums. We can talk a little bit more about another album later, but this one's a mixture of two different stories, and to me, I don't know, it's just that what was it, I think it was on Saturday Night Live, too much not enough cowbell. Well, you know what, too much piano here, okay, too much orchestra, things like that. I really, it's got one speed. This whole album has one speed throughout. Let me tell you some highlights. There is actually, so this is Zach Stevens on vocals. So this would have been his third or fourth album with the band, fourth album.
I think his fourth.
Vocals. Yeah. Zach Stevens, but John Oliva does sing 2 tracks on here, which no surprise are my favorite tracks. Another Way and Paragons and Innocence, but there's just not too many shining moments on. I feel it's just, I don't know. It's maybe and I know Paul O'Neill wrote virtually all the lyrics for this. So, and that's a name that we'll mention throughout this, this video or this live stream is Paul O'Neill and his involvement with Savatage. But yeah, and the one thing that really bothers me is there is no Savatage logo there. It's missing. And if you know Savatage and their logo, it's one of the best as far as I can say. But there is my least favorite, The Wake of Magellan. Just not much going for this one. I would not recommend it as a starting point for sure. And yeah.
Okay.
Well, fair points. More on that one in just a little while. Won't wait too long. I'm going to start at a different point, though. So number 12 on my list is probably the band's most infamous album. And I did debate about, there were 3 I thought, could be down here at the bottom. And at the end of the day, I decided that, yeah, Fight for the Rock does deserve rock bottom.
Oh, this whole thing?
I do not have a copy of it. But so yes, you do. It may not be their worst album, but it's their most disappointing because this, came out in the mid 80s. It's, the old, lineup that became very classic. So you expect good things and it doesn't really deliver. It came out in 1986, which many people will argue was the best year for, heavy metal releases. You've got, Rain and Blood coming out and Master of Puppets, all these, legendary bands with all these legendary releases. And Savatage puts out Fight for the Rock, which is by far the most commercial friendly leaning album they ever did. The album very much reeks of label interference. They had been on Atlantic, this was their second release for Atlantic, and you can practically, hear the executives, knocking on the studio door, if you listen closely in the background of some of the songs. The band is trying to do something they're not meant to do. They're trying to play songs that are going to have some kind of wider appeal and playability. And that's not Savatage's strong suit. It's just not. I re-listen to it from time to time. It's not an album, that I will never touch or anything like that. I play it from time to time. There are some songs that are passable on it, I suppose. But at the end of the day, it's not at all what you want to hear this era of the band do. You can listen to it, but all of their other stuff is just leaps and bounds better than Fight for the Rock. So yeah, well, some other albums, there's a couple more that I'm down at the bottom of the ranking I'm not very keen on, but in a way those albums I didn't necessarily expect a whole lot of, which I'll explain when it comes back around to me. This album, everything about this, if you didn't know the album, you'd expect it to be a real banger. The timing is right. The lineup is right. Everything should have been right. And somehow it's just not right. It's not right at all. It's long been panned by a lot of people as, the big misfire in the early Savatage catalog. And so for that reason, I think, in my mind, it deserved the bottom ranking, even though, again, it's not a terrible album, and I do play it a little bit more than I play my next 2 entries, but we'll have to wait a few minutes before we get to those. So, Marty, what do you have down here at the bottom of the ranking tonight?
Fight for the Rock. Everything Alan said, but the thing that makes this even more of a head scratcher, I mean, obviously it's a grab to more commercial territories, but you got Power of the Night that came before it, which I will admit, of the first 3 releases, Power of the Night was starting to kind of shift away from the more crazy cult metal type of sound for me. There seemed to be a little bit more evolution in that sound. This comes out, and then what follows it is Hall of the Mountain King, which I think a lot of people consider a metal classic. This album is an obvious stab into the more commercially acceptable hair metal realm that was going on. Is it straight up hair metal? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it's very commercially aligned, and the songs, it comes off as fluff. It's really tough to listen to. I bought this record blind. It's in amazing shape. You can tell whoever I bought it from beforehand didn't listen to it much either, to be completely honest. And so I mean, I'm like, wow, I got a great deal on this record, and it's an amazing, immaculate. It doesn't look like it's been played. And put it on, I'm like, aha, I see why. And everything Alan said is 100% correct on this. It was actually kind of a battle for my last placing, but this one won out just because it's just so, and I mean, some hair metal is okay. Some of the hair stuff is okay. There's some good bands out there. This isn't even in that realm. It's just really blah. It's like uninspired. You could tell if the label was telling them to go in this direction, it was maybe a bit begrudgingly, but still, I mean, they did it. They went to glamour shots, had this beautiful coiffing of their hair, and the atmospheric photo. And I don't know, man. It's just not. There's other albums here that are better, but they're still not great. This is just really bad. Bad.
Yeah. Only thing I'll add to that is, it's very easy for us, or any fan to sit, and criticize them for maybe selling out a little bit on this album.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. At the same time, you're in this band, you're in your, probably early 20s. You've been plugging away at a career in music for, over 5 years at this point. You've gotten your big break. You were on a big label that can turn you into rock superstars. Are you really, going to, ignore what they tell you to do? It's really easy for us to sit there and say, like, true metal forever, and you can't boss me around. Man, you put 100 people in that situation, and 99 of them would probably have done the same thing that Savatage did. So while the album is disappointing and I don't like it, it's hard to get mad at the band for trying to go in that direction given the circumstances. I think a lot of bands would have done the same thing no matter what they will tell you.
Right on.
Hey, Aaron, nice to see you in the chat.
Darcy, what is your number 11?
Well, you guys are going to make me want to change my ranking, boy. But I am going to stick to my guns, because there's one factor on Fight for the Rock that I'll talk about in a minute, because it's not even my number 11. So my number 11, I actually don't have a physical copy anymore. I actually sold my original copy, awaiting the reissue and the vinyl coming. But if you guys have Dead Winter Dead and somebody could hold it up, that is my number 11. Basically, for me, it's so that's the base. That would be the first full album, kind of again as a full band. After Chris had passed away, they did another album called Handful of Rain. We'll talk about that one also tonight.
Very soon.
That one was more or less, a John solo album. So this, Dead Winter Dead was the first as a band. We had El Petrelli in the band. We had Chris Cafferty, who was kind of, in the band for a while, then back in full time, and Johnny Lee Middleton on bass, which I don't want to forget to mention how important Johnny Lee Middleton was to this band. He has been the bass player the whole time. And if you listen to, some of the ones we'll mention maybe later in this ranking, the guy is a phenomenal bass player. And when you have a band that only has one guitar player, for the majority of their albums, that bottom end is really important. But anyway, so back to Dead Winter Dead, just really, I don't know, very orchestra. You could see the direction they were going with. If anybody's familiar with Trans-Siberian Orchestra, to me, they could almost put that label on this album, because that's how it was. There's even a a massive hit here, which everyone's heard. It's called Christmas Eve, Sarajevo 1224.
Yep.
It's one of those Christmas songs that you've all heard. But for me, another album with Zach Stevens on vocals, and I was always that guy who I love John Oliva, and he's kind of my guy, but just Zach Stevens, I felt like maybe he even tried too hard on this. There is 2 John Oliva songs on here, I Am and Doesn't Matter Anyway. I'd say I Am would be my favorite track, but Dead Winter Dead, the title track, check that one out if you haven't. It's a really good song. But other than that, I don't know, just too much, if you're familiar with the term counterpoint vocals or syncopated vocals, where it's la 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 on top of la 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 la, that type of, there is a lot of that. And that actually started on Handful of Rain, and we can talk about that, where it started, but it's almost overbearing. It gets annoying. And like I said, too much piano, too much. Another concept album again. So their final 3 albums were all concepts. So definitely my one of my least favorites. So that's Dead Winter Dead coming in at number 11.
Hey Darcy, there was someone asking in the chat that what reissue that Avatar came with. That came with Dungeons Are Calling. Was that a recent reissue?
That it's brand new. Actually, it came out the tail end of 2021. If you're familiar with a company called Edel Music out of Germany, they're a German company. They started a reissue campaign of all the Savatage. So they're currently up to the album Streets. Just came out. I actually just got that on Wednesday, just in time for this stream. Sorry. And
drink more White Claw.
Yeah, I'm getting dry. Good old White Claw, sponsored by White Claw. But yeah, this 7-inch came with Dungeons Are Calling, and some of the other reissues. I got a 7-inch with Hall of the Mountain King, and there's even a couple 10 inches available with some of the other ones. So if you're a vinyl collector and you lacking some Savatage, some of the best reissues that you can get right now. So
right on.
Very nice.
Okay, Alan, you're up. Number 11.
All right, number 11. And like I said, the bottom 3 for me are kind of interchangeable. But I decided on this day I would put Poets and Madmen in the number 11 slot. This is their 2001 album. I don't have a copy to show. It's the last studio album they did. It was a return of John to doing the bulk of the vocal work, which he had always been still working with the band, but like Darcy has said, for a lot of the albums in the 90s, he would kind of just do like guest vocals, almost a song here, a song there, a chorus here. Didn't perform a lot on the albums, but he was still helping and writing and stuff. So when it was announced that he was going to sing for this album, obviously folks got a bit hyped for it. It's another album though that I just found really disappointing. The big problem at this point, it's not John's voice. He still sounded good on the album. It's not anything about the lineup. The real problem here is that this was, yes, they have done multiple concept albums by this point, and they had simply run out of good ideas. They were repeating. They basically changed the character name, change the background story a little bit, but it was very quickly becoming put a sad person with a sad backstory in a sad situation and sing about them being sad. And somewhere along the lines of the album, 70 minutes in, they'll have some kind of epiphany and they'll be a little bit less sad. And it's just like, it had just really gotten stale by this point. Folks were hoping they would take it in a different direction. Some folks had thought, based on the title and the cover art that was leaked, that it was going to be like Edgar Allan Poe themed, which it very much was not. And there's just not much there. The story's not that interesting. The songs don't really stand out all that great on their own. This is one of those concept albums where you kind of got to listen to the whole thing. They're not meant to really be played as individual songs, but there's not enough there to the story to make you want to sit through it very often. I bought it as soon as it came out, wanted to check it out. never could get into it, even though I'm a pretty big Savatage fanboy. This album never clicked with me. I didn't keep it really all that long. I went ahead and traded it off. I've gone back to it a couple of times. I've played it a few times this week, trying to see, all right, will it click now? Am I forgetting something? Did I just overlook something at the time? I think I like it less now than I did when it came out. It really has nothing to hang your hat on whatsoever. Yeah, and as such, I'm going to put this one down here at number 11. It's it had potential, but they were just out of ideas. It really felt like they had taken the same concept and run it into the ground, and they were just out of momentum. So Poets and Madmen is kind of a sad end to their catalog, but that's why it's down here at number 11.
Okay.
So, Marty, I think I know what you've got at number 11. I could hazard a guess, but let's see. Maybe you've changed your mind on things.
I totally thought I threw this away, but I did not.
I know what's coming.
Yep. Handful of Rain. I couldn't even save the CD case for something else because it's all like something was burned onto it. But this album, Alan tells me it was just after John's brother Chris passed away, and he was dealing with a lot of stuff, and it came out musically with this album.
Mm-hmm.
I can honestly tell you I've not gone through this entire album. I put it on. Maybe this is why I kept it. I put it on, and it was just, like Darcy said, very all the same, very sad. Didn't really seem to go anywhere, just kind of floundered. And I'd just be like, oh my God, is this over? I'd look and it'd be on like song 4. I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is just not good. Not what I was hoping for, not what I expected. Not their fault. That's my fault. But I'm just saying, was I just not in the right mood for this? I don't know. I saved it for some reason. But this is just very much a boring. It's kind of dark. I don't know. I'll let you guys talk about this more. Like I said, I haven't processed the whole album. So it was just not what I was wanting when I played it, and it did not sit well with me. So that's about all I have to say about that. Yeah, see, people already telling me I'm dumb here, which is fine because I am. But yeah, it just
some of these 90s albums can be pretty polarizing. So some people are not going to some people are going to be in your camp, and some folks will rank it a bit higher. But that's okay. That's what we're here to discuss.
And that one, you know what? In your defense and whoever's defense, that album kind of had to be done to keep John sane at the time, and it was he was missing his brother in the worst way possible, and he needed to do that album, and it'll be coming up soon for me. But do you want me to go into my next one?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yep. Like Alan, I don't have a actual physical copy of this, but I am awaiting the vinyl reissue of this one. My number 10 is Poets and Madmen. And yes, you haven't seen Fight for the Rock yet, so don't worry. I'm gonna, like I said, I'm sticking to my guns.
Boom!
He's carrying that flag up the hill, man. He's gonna die on that hill with that giant flag.
Yeah, get this asshole off here. Anyways, Poets and Madmen. So, and Savatage hasn't done anything in 11 years. So this is their last studio album, 2001, and I do echo a few things that Alan did say about the album, but the one thing for me that shines on this album, this is the first time in a while that they went back to one guitar player, Chris Cafferty, and I believe if you throw this on and just submerge yourself in this album, you will see Chris really shine on guitars. There is some Savatage Chris Oliva moments on this album. You'll hear it, and he's definitely not trying to imitate Chris in any way. That part is impossible, but there is some small little hints and tributes for Chris on this album. But for me, I said earlier in the broadcast that I am a big John Oliva fan on vocals, and this is where he's back full time. And, after Chris had passed, what they were supposed to do right after the album Edge of Thorns was John was going to actually come back into the band as a second vocalist, keyboardist, and be on tour with them and do the whole thing, because I was thinking about this today prior to the, coming on. If I was to go see Savatage back in the day, I'd want John to be there. I don't want Zach Stevens singing Hall of the Mountain King. Nothing against Zach Stevens, because he has some really good stuff, and we'll mention some albums here.
He's
shortly.
more of a normal singer.
Yeah,
he's
more of just a metal singer.
Yeah.
And I had alluded to on Dead Winter Dead and The Wake of Magellan, it's almost like he was forcing the issue. Whereas some of his earlier Savatage work, like the one album that we'll mention in a bit, is fantastic. But I always thought that John's my guy, and if I'm seeing Savatage live, I want John there singing those key songs. But Poets and Madmen. Let's see, tracks. There's some actually really heavy moments on this too. Check out the opening track, "Stay With Me a While." Commissioner, it's called. Morphine Child, very long song but good. And I think my favorite track on this would be Awaken. It's a nice heavy track. John does sound good. He doesn't sound as good as he did in the early to mid 80s, but not a bad album. But I would put that Poets and Madmen at number 10.
Okay,
that's fair.
Alan.
All right, so we're at number 10. This is the last Savatage album that I find kind of disappointing. So after this, I would give everything a thumbs up. But these three at the bottom: Fight for the Rock, can't get behind that. Poets and Madmen, can't get behind that. And at number 10, also can't really get into Wake of Magellan, which, Darcy already gave a very good description of. It was Savatage's first album off Atlantic, which I guess is why there were issues with the logo not being on the album and it not getting a US release as early as it did in other territories. And yes, this is the point where it really felt like the concept albums were just becoming retreads of each other. Before this, I like the concept albums they did, but listening to this one, and I actually bought the expensive, I don't remember if it was the German or Japanese version, but I picked it up, in 97 when it was released and paid a lot for it. Got it near the fancy version in the box with the poster and all that kind of stuff. And I played it and played it and played it, and it's not terrible, but it's just very dull. Like Darcy said, a lot of piano going on here, because the whole album, and it's not a short album, is about a sad guy on a beach thinking sad thoughts about sad things and deciding to try to go out there in the water and commit suicide. And while he's out there, he finds somebody drowning, and instead of killing himself, he saves them. So again, he comes back to the beach and he's a little less sad. It's like, God damn it, y'all have done this before, and you've done it much better before. It really was the point where you just felt like, they did some great stuff with Paul O'Neill. We'll talk about that more later. But at this point, you're kind of like, Paul, could you maybe please find a different band to go help for a while? Because it's not working anymore.
I totally agree. Yeah, too much Paul.
It's just not working anymore on this one. I don't mind Zach Stevens' vocals on the albums from this era. I think his voice is pretty good for what they were doing during this period. There's nothing wrong with the performances. It's just that, it's a long slog of an album. It doesn't necessarily go anywhere great. There are some songs here and there that are okay. There's some parts that are kind of pretty, some parts that are a little heavier, but man, it is not an album I go back to ever. This week was the first time I'd played it in, geologic time units, and replaying it, I had the exact same thoughts as before. It's just like, that part's okay. Yeah, that part's okay. Okay, still got 58 minutes to go on this thing. I did make it all the way through, but it will probably, ice, glaciers will come and go before I revisit it again. It just doesn't work for me very much. Not a horrible album. I wouldn't give it like an F or a 0 out of 10 or anything. It's like in the 4 out of 10 range. It's the below average kind of thing.
For sure.
For sure. So
I got a question for you then.
Sure.
How much do you think the TSO was influencing them at that point? Because I don't know if there was no TSO. I don't know if they would have, maybe steered the ship better. But do you think they were heavily influenced by that?
Hey, let's be honest. TSO, for those who don't, is Trans-Siberian Orchestra. That band is enormous. Still to this day, they're so big. There's an East Coast and a West Coast version of this band. They tour throughout the Christmas season. They make bazillions of dollars playing in front of all generations of people, from old folks to young kids.
Yeah.
I would see really quickly, once the money started coming in, that band would take precedence over anything else they're doing musically. At some point, I'm sure Savatage becomes an afterthought or an obligation. It becomes an obligation.
Oh, yeah. I mean, again, remember, this is the mid-90s when these American metal bands had very little interest in them whatsoever. So, yeah, TSO had to feel like a lifeline. It's a good question, Darcy. And to be honest, I don't know, because I kind of missed the initial explosion of interest in TSO literally by like over a year, because right about the time that came out in like late 96, I had started grad school. And so everything happening in the outside of the world, I went from my office in the geology building to sleep to the record store to get something to eat, and I just repeated that little circuit, literally like a half-mile circuit for 2.5 years nonstop, which is nothing. The outside world, nothing got through that bubble for a while there. Literally, right around that time frame was like when former President Reagan died. I didn't hear about it for days. When Columbine happened in that time frame in the spring of '98, it was like a week before I even heard about it. I missed Columbine in the news for an entire week before. It's just like, holy crap, what happened? I completely zoned out of everything that wasn't, grad work, the local record store, which was all old throwback 80s metal. So I wasn't hearing anything new coming out or anything. So it's a good question, but yeah, it had to start having some impact, as Marty said. It would just have to.
Definitely.
Well, Michael, the one thing it is still metal. Yeah, it's Christmas songs and stuff, but if anything, it's a gateway drug for all these people that wouldn't be introduced to metal to say, hey, these heavy guitars and amazing shredders on playing solos and stuff. It's kind of a gateway drug to, I think, a bigger world for people that want to look. But
it's really fun. I've seen TSO. I bought the commemorative Christmas ornament, for God's sake, in the lobby. It's a fun time. No, you're not going to be banging around in a mosh pit with a bunch of 20-somethings in battle jackets, but you're going to be sitting there with grandmas covering their ears a little bit when it gets loud on the guitar. But it's still a very fun show to go catch.
No, it definitely
hasn't seen them. There's no reason not to.
Tom's got a good point here. Just Googled it, and there was a 6-week stretch in 2017 where TSO grossed 57 million in tickets.
Yeah,
that would make me say Saba who?
Yeah.
Again, Saba what?
Atlantic had dropped them at this point. Wake of Magellan came out. I forget the name of the label, but I mean, that's the point. It wasn't Atlantic. They were done as a major label act. So, yeah,
I think it came eventually. It was released by Nuclear Blast in North America, but back then, Nuclear Blast was a small label compared to what they are today. So, they weren't on a major label whatsoever back then. But yeah, but getting to this TSO thing, that would be definitely something my wife would go to. Like, for the most part, she hates metal, and I'm okay with that. But yeah, I would say the one thing though, Paul O'Neill and all those guys, they employed basically Savatage. All the guys from Savatage were in TSO, and they added the extra singers and things like that. So, at least they looked out for each other. That's for sure.
Yep.
All right. Where are we?
We're with me here. My number 10.
10.
I'm Wake of Magellan guy as well. I have a couple things to say about this whole era. All the albums leading up, not all the albums leading up to this, but a good share of the albums leading up to this one. I have in parentheses Meatloaf. At this point, I'm not going to say that the music writing is bad. I'm going to say the solos are all fantastic. But the riffs, they're very skilled players playing riffs that have a very logical resolve. I'm not very familiar with this album, but as I'm listening to it, I know where the riffs are going to go in my head. Like I've heard the album 10 times before. It's really weird. And it's because they went for a more musically correct writing style to allow the wealth of keyboards. It becomes more of a keyboard band at this point. The guitars are there, but the keyboards are very much, it gives it a very rock opera-esque vibe, which puts me in mind of Meatloaf, which I can't turn my nose up at because that shit's very talented. And I also like Avantasia, which is their latest album, is very Meatloafy, to be completely honest, on a couple songs at least. But the songwriting has changed. You get Chris's early version of the band. He was a very amazing riff writer. He was a very amazing soloist. His riffs were interesting and bizarre at times. And what came out of his passing is very seasoned players filling his shoes, but writing more pedestrian style music. So in purpose of layering harmonies and shit on top, I get it. The guitars become a foundation. The keyboards become more of a predominant focus. And I think, like Darcy was saying, this is just a very, maybe it was Alan, I don't remember at this point, guys, sorry, was saying it's very even keel. There's not a lot of excitement on it. I can't hate it because it's good, but it's just, it's kind of bland. And a lot of these albums around this era are very much in that wheelhouse for me. And it isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just not, I just want a little bit more excitement, maybe more dynamics other than theatrical keyboards and riffs that you know where they're going to go before they finish. But anyway, Darcy.
Well, I'd say, the one thing I thought about too is, we always say, oh, that band has never made a bad album. I can say that Savatage has never made a bad album, but they've made some albums that I just don't, there's no replay value for me. And that is the bottom of my list. And I have one more that's missing a factor, and his name is Chris Oliva. But my number 9 was I think Marty's number 11 or something. It is where is it? My number 9 is Handful of Rain. Honestly, there's the first, I'd say the first 2 tracks, actually, the Taunting Cobras and the title track, Handful of Rain, which they thought was going to be a massive hit in the US, but it really kind of flopped, actually. This cover makes this album seem like it's just going to be, fucking awesome, but it's not. It to me, I know a lot of people know that Alex Skolnick is on this album, but I think they're under the impression that Alex Skolnick is all over this album. He's not. He does all this. He does most of the soloing. John and Paul O'Neill do all the rhythm guitar work, and John actually plays the drums on this. This was very soon after Chris's death. Steve and Johnny Lee Middleton they weren't mentally in that headspace to rejoin the band, so John went on without them. And like I said earlier, this is something John needed to do to start the healing process. And it's no secret that, he was heavily into the drugs and the alcohol, even in this time prior to this, battling his demons. But I would say Alex Skolnick is a bright spot on here. There's some killer solos on here. Actually, the last track on here is called Alone You Breathe, which is a tribute to Chris Oliva, but not a song about him per se. But the soloing in there by Alex is top notch. There's actually 2 different solo sections in there that just go on and on that are, and the Alex Skolnick sound. But I would say just because Alex Skolnick is on here, don't maybe don't hold this one as high as you would, but I mean, if you like it, that's up to you too. I'm not going to tell you what to like and what not to like, but I would say, you know, the Skolnick thing and maybe this album cover, which is one of the artworks from the guy they used quite a bit, and you'll see some of this. I think his name is Gary Smith. His artwork you'll see very soon. But what else can I tell you about?
A handful of abs is what that should be called. A
Yeah.
handful of fucking six packs.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
Compared to my keg. But check out the track Symmetry. That's a heavy song. What else? Yeah, Taunting Cobras. But I mean, the highlight for me on this album is the title track, Handful of Rain. Zach Stevens sounds awesome. I know Steve and Johnny Lee Middleton and Alex were all in the video for that. So, you know, kind of made you think that they were in the band at the time. But so what was supposed to, like I said earlier, what was supposed to happen with these guys after the Edge of Thorns album, which was a really good album too, and we'll talk about that soon. But John was going to get back in the band, and they were going to be a 6-piece, and I think a 6-piece at that time, and with Chris Cafferty and his brother. But you know, all those plans went south. But yeah, just I think this is kind of fitting for, you know, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Just not one I go back to that often. So Handful of Rain, number 9.
I will say, everybody kind of lambasting me in the chat, I will revisit the album. You know, especially now people are saying I need to at least listen to the first 3 songs again. I will do it. And like I said, I was going to toss it in the garbage, but I didn't, because I didn't give it a fair shot. And I knew that when I put it away, but I'll definitely revisit for sure. Well,
and that song Chance, the 3rd song, pretty good song. It's a long song, but there is tons of counterpoint vocals in that song. And it gets to, it's almost to that overbearing point at some parts of that song. They definitely could have shaved 3 minutes off that song easily to make it better.
Right. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm obviously wrong, but I was under the impression, I thought Alan was telling me that John was still writing for the band, but there was some legal shit that he couldn't be in it. Was that true, or am I wrong on this? Am I mixing it with somebody else?
No,
maybe.
Never
I think you may be mixing that.
Okay, I'm mixing it. All right. I'm glad I put it out there, because I was under the impression that he was still writing for the band. He just wasn't being credited. But anyway, okay. You're up, Alan. Number
9. Okay.
9.
So here we get to albums that I do give, you know, at least a thumbs up, but yeah, some more than others. I was kind of surprised this one slid all the way down to 9, but yeah, I looked at it, looked at the list, looked back over. It's like, well, yeah, I think this is the place for it, even though it's an album I do kind of like. This is where I've got Edge of Thorns.
Oh, it's amazing to me how close you and I's numbers are right now. It's amazing. Anyway, go ahead.
All right. It's, you know, this is, you know, the first one they did without John on vocals. So, you know, that was the big seismic shift. They had a lot of success with, you know, the last several albums before this, when John was still singing. But John wanted to step aside at this time. I've heard so many different versions of what was going on with him that I don't know what is and is not correct. So I'm not even going to speculate or rattle them off. Bottom line was John wanted to, you know, help the band, work with the band, write for the band, stuff like that. But he did not want to, you know, be doing the main vocal duties anymore. And so he didn't. So, yep, they brought in Zach. You know, he has a very different voice. I don't mind his voice at all. I think, again, he was pretty good for the style they were going in. Yeah, this is the one album that has Zach singing and Chris on guitar. So it's a unique point in the band's history for that. Gorgeous cover. Really like the cover image a lot. Although, yeah, again, some folks will look and be like, that's maybe not heavy metal enough, but whatever. I've always thought it was a really pretty different color scheme that you don't see on heavy metal album covers a lot. Anyway, so I'm saying good things. Why does it come in at 9? The problem with this album is a lot of these songs have parts that I like, but the songs overall, a lot of them feel like they're a little clunky. It's like this song has a good chorus, but the verses are a little weird. This song has good verses, but the chorus doesn't quite fit. So there's a lot of good parts here, but they're all kind of mismatched. The title track is really, really good. I like that. Hey, Rodney, thank you very much for that. That's really cool of you, man.
You're too kind, Rodney. Thank you so much.
I appreciate that. Yeah. And again, for those, the super chat, it's just there. Sometimes folks ask, how they can help out the cast a little bit. So it's just, just there for folks like that. We'll still do it, whether or not folks chip in. So don't worry about that. But yeah, getting back to Edge of Thorns, the title track is amazing. I love that one. Very strong, nice, epic tune. It closes on a nice acoustic-y number with Sleep. There's a couple others here and there that are good. Lights Out is a good, faster one. Harkens back a little bit more to what they were doing in the mid-'80s. Miles Away is kind of cool. But yeah, a lot of these, Scraggy's Tomb doesn't ever quite come together. Degrees of Sanity, I like parts of it, but as a song, it feels like it's, again, missing some parts. And as such, it tends to be an album when I play it, I do start skipping around. It's like, I'll play these songs, like the next song starts like, I don't really want to hear that one. So yeah, comparing it to the rest of the catalog, felt like it kept kind of slipping lower and lower in the ranks. If you had asked me just to guess beforehand, I'd have figured like, oh yeah, this will probably be right in the middle-ish, but it slid a little bit lower. Not a bad album. I like it. I still own it. I bought it the day it was released in the spring of '93. And spring of '93 was a weird time for American bands putting out heavy metal. It was a real changing of the guard happening. You had, Metallica and Megadeth had already kind of gone off the rails. Overkill put out their worst, most boring album with I Hear Black.
Oh, it's so bad.
John Oliver's out of Savatage, and here they're going, new vocalist. The style of the album overall isn't that different from what they had done on the previous one or two albums, but again, it feels very different with a new guy behind the mic. So yeah, it was a very strange time for American metal, but it's one of the albums from '93 that I still like. I still own a copy of. A lot of the things that came out around that time frame I didn't keep because it was just weird times, and a slightly weird Savatage album, but still an okay Savatage album. So I'll put Edge of Thorns here at number 9, and it sounds like Marty may have it in a pretty similar spot based on what you just said.
I'm cheating off your paper. Sorry, Professor Steele. Yep, this is my number 9, Edge of Thorns. But why would it be number 9 when you've got the Queensryche hat and the Han Solo outfit? Why, would you ask? Well, this is Chris's last album with Savatage. He passed away after this. This is a solid album. It's, again, Savatage sliding into what they ended up becoming. Was it fully there yet? No, it wasn't. But the songs start to get a little bit more samey to me. But the solos are still fantastic. It's just, there's albums that come before it I think it's a little bit better. It's not a bad album. It's just, I don't know. Alan summed it up really nicely. It just didn't hit as some of these other ones did as well for me, but I do like the cover as well. It is very romantic novel-y and whatnot, but yeah, very good album, but still number 9. Something's got to go down the list, right? Even if you got the Queensryche hat and the Han Solo garb.
Yeah, again, you're right, Marty. Something has to slide down the list to make room for other things. So sometimes you're going to have an album lower on the list that you still think is okay. That happens when you do these rankings. Or
an album that you think is shit that's higher in the list. Like, finally, and I'll explain as I go. So from here on in, there's one huge factor that's in every one of these albums, and that's Chris Oliva. Mm-hmm. I am a huge fan.
Oh yeah,
his guitar tone. I've mentioned it on several different videos. It's almost like an eerie guitar tone. I haven't heard anybody that sounds quite like Chris. Like whereas you got a guy like Wolf Hoffman. He sounds like Wolf Hoffman. You know exactly who you're listening to when you're listening to a guy like Wolf Hoffman or a guy like Chris Oliva, two of my favorite guitar players. So he is on this album, but finally coming in at, not a really low spot, but not super high either, is Fight for the Rock. Not their most shining moment for sure. This is the first album to feature Johnny Lee Middleton on bass. Probably not the album he wanted to come in on. He probably thought, what the fuck? What band am I in? What did I just join? But, and I can't stress enough of the improvement of quality of the album to come after this, which we'll talk about tonight for sure. But there's some good stuff on here. I think there is. There's two cover songs on here, which are the Wishing Well cover song is not bad. Day After Day, they could have left that off for sure. But I do like the title track, Fight for the Rock. And kind of the songs that I would recommend if you wanted to listen to this album would be Hide for sure. The Edge of Midnight is a really good track too. And believe it or not, I featured this on a video that I think it was Metal Mickey and Jurgen started for 10 terrible albums that aren't Saint Anger. And I featured this one on, and I did state in the video, I said, this is, it's not a terrible album, but it's very weak for Savatage. And you know what? I got shit on all over in that video, and I was just laughing because, some of those, how you get those few assholes in the comment section, which I don't give two shits about, but it was quite comical, and the video got massive views only because you're being, a little bit whatever. But anyways, this is my number 8, Fight for the Rock. Terrible album cover for sure. I don't know what they were fighting for the rock. They're standing on rock, fighting for it and waving their flag. But there is a couple good tracks on here. And the one thing that I'll say again, it's got Chris on it. He sounds phenomenal. And I can't stress enough too, again, of how important Steve Wackholtz was on drums and Johnny Lee Middleton on bass. Great 4-piece. Probably not your starting point, but not total shit in my opinion. So coming in at number 8, Fight for the Rock.
Right on.
That's fair. We won't penalize you for having it at number 8. Yeah. But you make very good points about Chris Oliva. So I can't say enough good things about his playing. Amazing guitarist, very unique style. I've always put it this way, when he was the only guitarist in Savatage at times, it still sounded like there were two guys playing guitar. I have no fucking idea how he did that because, very unique style all over the place, but always in control, always amazing. Really, really, devastating loss. Very talented individual. One of my favorite guitarists of that era, and people, of course, they give him props, but not frequently enough. He really, really deserves all the praise he gets.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, Alan, I'm not a what if type of person. I don't think of that too much, but honestly, I have thought, what if I would like to see the alternate universe where Chris did not pass away, and I believe he would be, legendary status, and I believe this band would have went on to do some tons of amazing albums, and who knows, probably still going to this day. But big loss.
Yep. Yeah. We will never know what that path would have been like. So don't know. All right, but let's see. So we're at number 8, and number 8 for me, I don't own this one, but I think someone showed it earlier. I know Darcy, you already talked about it. I've got Dead Winter Dead at number 8. This one, for me, it's the last really good album they did. And by saying really good, it still does have some problems. But this one, I bought it again the day it came out. I literally called the record store that morning. It came out early in the year. I'm looking at the date. I know it was like January timeframe. They got it listed as September 95. Okay, it did not get released in the US in September of 95. It was more like January timeframe. Anywho, I know because I called them, said, hey, have you guys got the new Savatage album? And the lady said, no, sorry, we don't have that. It's like, crap. I thought about it. There's like, that's not the lady who normally works at the store. I want to go down there and check myself, damn it, because I bet they've got it. So after biology class, me and one of my buddies trudged through a lot of snow and ice downtown to the store, and yep, sure enough, they had it. Bought it right away. And yeah, the lady actually looked at me. She's like, are you the guy who called about this band a while ago? And she's like, yes. She's like, oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said Savatage. She's like, oh, okay. Honest mistake. Not a big deal. No problem. First off, yes, this one, is one of the Paul concepts. It's about, a young couple falling in love against the backdrop of the Bosnian Herzegovinian, war and genocide in the early and mid 1990s. So kind of a heavy topic. You got very much the Romeo and Juliet thing a little bit going on. I think it works very well as a concept album. The story works well. They convey it very well in the music. There's a track early on it that let's see, This Is the Time, talking about the hope that whole region was experiencing with the downfall of the communist bloc era. And yeah, I mean, it has that very positive, uplifting vibe. And then you go into the next track, with I Am and Starlight, where things start to break up into factions, and the war begins. And yeah, it's kind of it's a really gut-wrenching twist in the album. They convey it very nicely in the music. As you said, Darcy, John's got a couple of vocal parts on here, but it's pretty much Zach's show at this point. And of course, yes, Christmas Eve, Sarajevo, 1224 would get retitled Carol of the Bells, and has been played approximately 579,000 times on FM radio every single Christmas season ever since. But, hey, good for them. They caught a break and went on to, huge things that they weren't going to do as Savatage. So why only number 8? This just isn't an album I want to go back and play very often. While it has, a couple, a couple of songs stand out here and there as okay, it just doesn't quite get over the hump all that well. I like the concept. They execute it well, but it doesn't have, the individual songs don't stand out. This isn't something where you put it on like, I really want to hear that song, or I really want to hear these two songs. It's like, if I want to put this on, I got to want to sit there and listen to this whole story play out. And again, it's kind of a depressing story. So you got to be in the right mindset to want to listen to the whole story thing. And very often I'm just not. So this one's down here, not because it's a bad album. I like it. I'll give it a thumbs up. I'd probably give it like, 6 out of 10 at least. But it's down here because I don't want to replay it very much. Like I said, I don't even own a copy anymore. I've got it on a digital copy. But those don't scroll into that section of the iTunes very often. So something's got to rank a little bit lower. And while I think this is a good album and I enjoyed it when it came out and I like the concept, it's the last good concept album they did. It still just doesn't have a whole lot of staying power in this day and age for me. So Dead Winter Dead's got to come in at number 8. Yeah. And Marty, you're back there at the helm. So what have you got at number 8?
Well, unlike Alan, I don't own this album. I heard it for the first time yesterday. My number 8 is, so I don't think any of us has shown it, but here is Poets and Madmen. Sorry, it's not the best. I was a bit surprised, and I liked it a bit better than, some of the albums leading up to this or after this. John's back at the helm vocally. He's not the same John that was singing early on. I mean, the early stuff, his vocals were really unique, very unhinged when he goes into that shrieking thing. He does so well. You can tell years and age and maybe a little bit too much abuse has kind of affected the pipes a bit, but it's still kind of good to have him back in the fold. It kind of set it more in line with what Savatage kind of was to me. And riffs were a little bit better. There was a little bit more variation, I thought. I've listened to it once yesterday. So that's my initial quick hot take on it. Alan had a lot more negative things to say about it. I just it seemed like a little bit better, like a shift to a little bit better direction, like a little bit more passion was kind of maybe coming back in. Was it there yet? It rivals some of these other albums I've got ranked earlier. No, it's not there yet, but it's okay. It's an okay album. I'll probably pick it up if I stir it up cheap somewhere.
That's cool. Yep. And some folks here in the chat are commenting they like that one too. So yeah, that's absolutely cool.
No, I would say too, though, it was more in a heavy direction too, compared way less piano on that.
Yep. Which is noticeable. And yeah.
Excuse me.
There you go. That'll make it better.
Gotta have the iced tea White Claw.
Cheers.
But I would say, and I'll reiterate, Chris Cafferty, phenomenal on that album. His soloing was awesome, and but you, like you said, John, and I think John was a pack-a-day smoker also, and his voice was definitely not what it was in the early '80s to mid '80s.
All right, you are up, sir. Number 7.
Okay,
we're getting through to about almost the halfway point here. This is kind of the end of the bottom half of the ranking we're going into.
My number 7 is Edge of Thorns. It's not that I disagree with Ellen, but I don't fully agree with Ellen on this one. But I want to point out the shining moment on this album is it's not Zach Stevens, it's Chris's guitar playing.
It's great.
If you could just separate everything from this album and just listen to him, you'd be listening to just pure brilliance. It's phenomenal. So sad that this is his last album, and yeah, the title track, one of my favorites. Sorry, talking too much. I'd also encourage you to check out He Carves His Stone. Zach sounds phenomenal. He's hitting the Halford highs, everything on that one. And Conversation Piece, great track. You'd think that by that title it's an instrumental. It's not. Sleep is okay. There was actually a video for the song Sleep. It's not a bad track. It just really doesn't go anywhere. It's just kind of a slow mover, one kind of gear. But yeah, check out Degrees of Sanity. I think that was a really good track. Damien, not bad, but another Gary Smith cover artwork. I love the kind of the scary guy in the background shining through the light. But great album cover. I love all the colors, like Alan said. Not so much metal, but if you only needed one Zach Stevens album, this would be the one I'd recommend to you. Yeah, and rest in peace, Chris. Rest in peace, Chris Oliva, because he shines on this album. My number 7, Edge of Thorns.
All right, we're down to 7.
We are down to 7, and yep. Okay, so y'all have already mentioned this one. I've got it ranked a bit higher. But yeah, it is time for me to chime in on Handful of Rain. Darcy's already given all the backstory on this quite well, with it being almost a John's solo project. Another one, bought it the day it came out. Probably the same record store, come to think of it. But this one I liked a lot when it came out. I played it a ton for a pretty long time too. Over the years, it does not get back into rotation very often. But let's take a look here. This is one where actually I think some of the heavier tracks are actually some of the weaker ones. Taunting Cobras, it's meant to be kind of a heavy, aggressive song, but somehow it feels slightly off. I don't think Zach was particularly good at those songs. He doesn't sound, his voice isn't quite as well suited to these more aggressive numbers as John's was. And so he feels a little out of place there. Handful of Rain, very cool track. Chance is an interesting one. This is one, Darcy, you mentioned before. It's a long song, over 8 minutes. And this is one of the first times where they do start doing this multi-tracking thing with the vocals. I think this one actually works really, really well. The song is about, it's not Schindler's List, but it's the same topic. It's another person who did the same thing, helped a lot of Jews make it out of Germany and Nazi-occupied Europe. And it's kind of the story of this guy struggling. Should he take this chance to help these people? He's safe himself. He's not a Jew. He's comfortable. No one's bothering him. He sees what's happening. And so the different, the multi-track and vocals are the different voices in his conscience kind of bouncing around of, you should help them. No, you should just take care of your own family. Can you live with yourself if you don't do anything? Look, just leave it be, man. You're really going to piss everything away for these people you don't even know. And it works really, really well in the concept of, the story that's playing out in the track. So really, really nicely crafted, in my opinion, on that one. A lot of these songs, you can definitely tell, yes, John is working through things with tracks like, Castles Burning, Nothing Going On, Symmetry. Alone You Bleed Alone You Breathe at the end. Yeah, it's really nicely done. It has some callback moments to lyrics that they had used on Gutter Ballet and Streets. But John works them back in very, very nicely and in the context of, talking and, kind of saying farewell to his brother. So I think they did a lot of things very well on this album. Skolnick's solos are really, really good. And so, this album sat well with me for a long time. It's one that I like the album. I will give it a thumbs up. I've definitely got it ranked higher than y'all do. But that said, I don't go back and replay it very often anymore. I think it's an album I got my fill of. I played it a lot, and then I played it a lot more. And so at this point, I rarely break it out. So I almost could have slipped it a spot or two higher in the rankings, but it gets pretty crowded at the top of these kind of rankings. Everyone in the chat, that's giving us crap, it's easy to criticize, but man, sit down and try to do these yourself, and you start to realize it's if I put that a little bit higher, which one do I slide down below it? It's a tough call. So Handful of Rain, it's right here in the middle of the pack somewhere for me. And tonight it's going to be number 7. And yes, wanted to say a big thank you to 66. That's really, really nice of you. Hi from the Philippines. Philadelphia.
The Philippines of America, by the way.
Some folks sometimes ask why I'm always looking up.
That guy's a good dude. He's a good dude.
Hey, thanks so much, man. You're so kind. That's incredibly generous. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sorry I misread that. Sometimes folks ask what I'm looking at in the chat. I have a much bigger monitor, but it's slightly above the camera here, whereas most people have the camera high. I've got the camera low, so that's why sometimes I'm sitting here looking up as I'm reading stuff on the big screen and typing. So yeah, I missaw that because I was trying to read it on the small screen. But thank you very much. It's very, very nice of you.
Very kind. Thank you.
He's actually from Canada originally, but maybe folks don't know this in Canada, but we do not have a penny. So Billy, anyways, just round that up to $20, okay? Because we don't have a penny here in Canada anymore. I don't know if you guys even knew that.
I had forgotten it, but yeah, I remember that it's been talked about in the U.S. about phasing out the penny. But
they eliminated the penny here years ago. So we kind of round up. If it's at $4.32, you only pay $4.30. If it's at $4.33, you pay $4.35. So it kind of works out in the end, but there is no penny here in Canada anymore. So there's your trivia for tonight.
Right on.
Fun stuff.
I'll say it. What do you got?
All right. So Marty, that is my pitch for Handful of Rain being actually a pretty good album, but I do get why some folks don't get into it. So Marty, what have you got at number 7?
I have got, what am I trying to do here? There we go. Dead Winter Dead.
Okay.
I gotta say, Zach is a great singer. He's just a very normal singer. He's a very, I I find a lot of these albums without John singing on. I wish John was singing on them, just because John's got a lot more character, more of a defining Savatage sound. But if they were trying to get more of a, I don't want to say well-rounded. I mean, I don't know. Zach is just a very solid singer. He's just not really, doesn't have a lot of character. I don't think he's got a lot of unique character to him. But this album for me, it works pretty good. It's in that realm where a lot of the riffs kind of flow along. There's not a lot of dynamics on these records, but this one has got a few good songs on it that I liked. I think Doesn't Matter Anyway was one of them. Catchy, memorable. Sarajevo. But yeah, solid. Don't have a whole lot to say about this, to be completely honest. It's already been talked about anyway, but it's good. There's albums better than it coming up, but
yeah,
good stuff.
But no, you touched on Zach's vocals too, and I guess you could put into perspective that Zach was, a guy who walked into the shop every day and said, here's your list, Zach. This is what you're doing today. I don't think he had a massive amount of input into the whole deal, and taking nothing away from his vocals, but I think he was a hired employee to do a job.
Yep.
that he did a very serviceable job, and kind of said, do it this way, don't do it that way, type of thing. And but like I said, I think he did a good job. But you're right, he's not John. He doesn't have that John. He doesn't have that John flair.
He's a very solid singer without a lot of character, which he would probably take great offense to that comment, but I don't mean it really disparagingly, because he's really good at what he does. He's solid. He sounds like a lot of other singers, to be honest. Very common. He sounds like a common metal singer, which is probably an insult, but I'm trying to be nice about it. But it's yeah.
I like his vocals a bit more than you guys seem to. I thought he was very, very good for the kind of material they were doing in the 90s. But yeah, like Darcy said earlier, I don't think I'd want to hear him try to go back and do a lot of the early songs from the band catalog. No, but I think he sounded very good for the kind of stuff they were writing during the period that he was in the band. So, I don't know how much input he had in the songwriting, but I think they were definitely writing material that suited him well.
And he did a good job. That's true. Yeah, for sure.
All right, Darcy, you are up, my friend, with number
6. Number 6.
Top half of the rankings now.
Well, and you know what? This is the point for me where it's just all awesome. I'm gonna throw it out there. There's not a bad thing that I'm gonna show you from here on in. It just boils down to a lot of it, and we've talked about this in the past in all of our videos. It's maybe when you came in on the band, when did you discover them? And unfortunately, I did not discover Savatage till later on. They were probably on their maybe 4th album, but I did end up discovering this at some point. This is my number 6, and we said we'd include the EP for The Dungeons Are Calling. So I had mentioned earlier in the video that they have technically 4 concept albums. This is a bit on the conceptual side of basically The Dungeons Are Calling would be more of a metaphor for drug use and things like that. This is a human skull with, I think Alan on his video called this a chicken baster. Right here. It's actually just a handmade syringe to go through the skull, representing, obviously the demons and things of drug use. And a lot of these songs, there's many metaphors in metal and all kinds of music, but The Dungeons Are Calling is basically a metaphor for drug use, things like that. But great track, By the Grace of the Witch, another one alluding to that. Visions. Now, they actually have 2 tracks named Visions. One's the instrumental on one of the earlier albums we mentioned. I think it was maybe
Handful of Rain.
Yeah, I think it was either maybe Poets and Madmen or something. One of the other ones, but maybe you're right, Handful of Rain.
No, I think you're right. Maybe a later one.
This Visions is awesome. It's very heavy. So this one contains what they set out to do when they recorded Sirens. Most of this was recorded the same time Sirens was, but because of the the length, what could fit on vinyl back then, they had to cut off a few tracks. So they cut off a few of the tracks to make Sirens just everything fit on there. But they also included some of their earliest work, even as Avatar, like City Beneath the Surface and The Whip. But this is 6 tracks. We won't include this bonus track, but I'd say the highlights on this are the title track and Visions. Visions is phenomenal. Do check that one out. But that is my number 6. This is again Chris and John shining. I know Johnny Lee Middleton was not in the band at this point, but Whack Holtz was on drums, doing a great job. But definitely do check this one out if you haven't. It's considered an EP, but it's 25 minutes. So, and we said we definitely need to include this because it's kind of must-have Savatage as far as I'm
It is. Yeah.
It's it's under 30 minutes, but it's got 6 songs on it, so it falls into that. I hate that category of mini LP. It's too long to be an EP and too short to be an album, and it drives me nuts.
Yeah, I agree totally. But yeah, that's my number 6.
All right, Alan.
All right. Well, this is probably where I want to get the umbrella back out because people won't like my number 6 pick, but it's honestly where I put this album.
To save you from the garbage raining down, I got that for Handful of Rain.
Yeah. Well, I want to take the heat off you here, buddy, because this is where I put Sirens.
Whoa. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I still love you, Professor Steele.
Actually, here. Get deep. I have an OG pressing, so I can't hate it that bad. Again, like Darcy said, we're at the point where things are pretty good here. The issues with Sirens, folks can have some fun with this, but honestly, this is where I rank Sirens. I think a lot of people do overrank this one a little bit because the title track is such a fucker, and it's the first song on the album. And I mean, it's one of the real immortal classics. It stays in their live set forever. It's heavy as fuck. Right away, you're introduced to this crazy band with this just insane sounding, creepy vocalist. Right away, this is a band that's got a different trajectory than others. The way I heard someone put it best in a review one time was that, all these other, early bands are playing, singing about, high fantasy and castles, and Savatage is singing about the dungeons, and you get it right there in Sirens so well. Side A holds up pretty well. Holocaust is a good song. I believe I've always liked that one a lot. The side, one. Rage is it's a good banger, but it's kind of an average banger. When you get on to side 2, there are some songs on here that are not so hot. It closes, with Out on the Streets, which is a real schmarmy song. That's a song that could have been on Fight for the Rock real easy. Hey, I think sometimes people forget, that they're still so in awe of Sirens, and I get that, but Out on the Streets is not a good song. I don't really care for, On the Run. The song that opens the side is okay. It's not as good as the stuff on side A. Twisted Little Sister is kind of catchy. Savatage tried doing several of these slightly sleazy songs over the years from time to time, and I never thought it was their strong suit. When they went into That Kind of Dungeon, meow. Somehow, I don't know. It never quite worked for them. It's not terrible. I don't mind the song, but it just, for them, it feels a little too goofy. Living for the Night is all right. Scream Murder is good, but they're kind of short. Those songs go by pretty quick. So side B goes by, and I'm looking at the track list thinking, well, what is really amazing on side 2 of this album? Side A has this just, one track that overshadows everything else here by a mile. And I like the other tracks on side A, but side B, it's okay. And as such, I can't really rank. I don't put this album as high as the others. Stuff above this, we're going to get in some albums that are, in my opinion, damn near flawless. And this album, side B, has some very kind of some material that I just don't enjoy that much. I think it's, these are the kinds of songs that, you fill out your first album with because you got to fill it out with something. It's a good album. It's a classic album. It's got, this one song that we will all know and love and cherish until we die. But, and they also, this material sounds great live too. I've got tons of different, Savatage live recordings, and they, some of these songs stayed in the live set for several years. And if you've never listened to a lot of late 80s live Savatage, they fucking kill it every time. Everyone I've ever listened to is just, they just nail it on every single show. But yeah, the B-side of this album doesn't really do a whole lot for me. And as such, I can't rank it any higher. So Sirens, I'm going to put it right here. And I know a lot of people like it higher, but I'm like, unless you got to sell me on something on side B. And I've played it again a few times this week. I'm going back and making sure, is this where I want to rank this? I'm just like, well, yeah, side B is just not coming together for me. So
I'm gonna sell you. I'm gonna sell you very soon. But I can't argue with you on that. I mean, I had once said, I had talked about albums where there's this one track that just feels like it carries a whole album. And this album, I got shit on because people just take things way too literally sometimes. But I was talking about Painkiller, and the song Painkiller to me is phenomenal. And there is a couple other, 2 or 3 other very good tracks on Painkiller. But if you really dig deep, it's not all roses on that album either. But I think that's what you're trying to say is, Sirens might be the shining. Seems to be the shining moment for you on that album, and I'll talk a little bit more about that one soon. But I get what you're saying.
That's fair. Yep. Oh, and yeah, let me. There was a comment on the screen from Ryan a second ago about maybe I should send him my copy. No, mine. But a point to that. The original album. There are copies that were pressed on blue vinyl. It's really pretty. It's very rare. It's always been a pretty expensive collectible one. Again, I'm a pretty big Savatage fanboy. I've spent a lot of time and a not insignificant amount of money tracking down some of their older items. I've never had any real interest in tracking down a blue vinyl copy of Sirens because the album for me, I'm not going to pay that much for that album just to get the blue vinyl variant because I don't like the album enough to put that much into a copy of it. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I sit with that one. Some albums I'll pay you a bit more for if I love it enough. I don't love Sirens enough to go after the blue vinyl. That's just where I'm at with it. But I'll be interested to hear your comments when we get to it in your rankings, Darcy. But before we do that, Marty, I believe it is your time for number 6.
Yeah, I've heard Alan talking about this album quite a bit, very favorably, and my number 6 is Streets, a rock opera. For me, it's the last of the really meatloafy rock opera style albums of theirs. It's really good. I don't own it yet. Darcy's actually sending me a copy. Thank you, sir. The songwriting is quite good. There's a lot of dynamics on the album. There's a lot of passion in the album. It really sat well with me. I played it a couple times this week. I liked it both times. I thought it probably the last of the getting into the middle era that really stands out as something a bit special. They got a little bit more plain as they went on after this one, but again, it's a different shift in the band for sure, but I liked it. I thought it was well written, well done, good album. Darcy,
more on that later.
Right.
More, I know it's coming more later. That's why I was reserved.
Well, no Sirens yet. We're on what are we on here? Number 5?
Number 5, top 5 time.
Well, this wasn't quite my introduction to Savatage, but I was just on the cusp of this album coming out in 1985. My number 5 is Power of the Night. Phenomenal album cover, by the way. I just love this one. This, to me, I've always been, that raise your fist metal guy, and this one definitely. This is just perfect for me. But I would say the one thing I should point out, this one was produced, and I think, Alan, correct me if I'm wrong, but Max Norman came in and produced this album. So you got a bit of a commercial feel. This would be this is their first album for Atlantic Records. Mm-hmm. And I think they wanted to take, you knew what came after this, which was Fight for the Rock, but which they really, I know I had it higher than you guys, but they really dumbed them down on that album. But I thought this is a great album. You really hear the real start of Chris's, well, not the start of his guitar tone, but kind of where they would take him on the next few albums, and just the natural progression of his guitar playing, which is phenomenal on here. But there's a few tracks on here I would call mainstream-ish. I know the track, actually the track Hard for Love, they told the band they wanted to change it to Hot for Love, but the band refused, and they wanted to do a video for it and all this shit, but they did not. But the title track is my favorite track on here, Power of the Night. Unusual, good track. Warriors is kind of a raise your fist metal anthem type of thing. Washed Out, decent track. One of my favorites is Skull Session. But yeah, you definitely can hear that Max Norman production stamp on this album. But I thought originally I'd rank this a little bit higher, but I think it just fits perfect at number 5 for me. So that is Power of the Night from 1985. And again, love that album cover, but number 5.
All right. Alan.
All right. Darcy, on this one, we can agree exactly. I've got Power of the Night at number 5 as well. And yeah, a lot of the same excellent points you made. I thought this one might rank a little bit higher. This one has a little bit of the Sirens problem for me too, though. This one is a little bit of a tale of two sides once again.
Yeah, it is.
You've got the title track up front, and it's an absolute classic, immortal track. I like everything on side A. Unusual has that weird, creepy vibe that, we've commented on it several times, but you really cannot understate how good John was at this dark, creepy, edgy, unhinged kind of voice. You don't have a lot of metal singers that do that. Yeah. And the ones, when they do it well, it stands out. It's, like Scott Rieger's kind of, has that quality to his voice, and St. Vitus, and John has it, in these early days of Savatage. Unusual is great. Warriors has that great opening, the big anthemic build up, and then that very slow crunch riff that goes into the song. Necrophilia, again, just the fact that they got away with naming a song Necrophilia on an Atlantic album's release.
Well, we see what it got them. The album afterwards, they made them bend over and spread their cheeks.
Yeah, this was Power of the Night. The next time, like, yes, sir. Whatever you say, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. May I have another? Yeah.
Washed Out. Washed Out's a good, again, just crazy one. And you're right. Chris is really, he's good before this, but he's really coming into his own around this time as just a standout guitar player. But yeah, then you get to side 2, and you've got Hard for Love, which was kind of sort of meant to be the hit. There wasn't ever going to be a hit off this album, but
Hard for Love, yeah.
And so again, this is another one where they're kind of trying to do the slightly sleazy thing, and it just come together. Fountain of Youth is a song I've always found very forgettable. Skull Session's okay. It's a little short, so it kind of goes by fast. And it closes, In the Dream again is, a ham-fisted attempt at a more ballady track, which not the worst, not the best. So once again, side 2, the pickings get a little slim on Power of the Night, but the material on side A more than makes up for it. This is one of those cases where the good definitely outweighs, the weak on the track listing for me. Love the album a lot, but if I'm being honest and I'm going to pick at it, I've got to point out that it's got some of the same problems that Sirens did, where not every song on here is a gem. They're just not, but there are some outstanding tracks. And so Power of the Night made it to number 5, but I can't push it any higher than that.
Fair enough.
All
right, Marty, what are we starting your top 5 with?
Number 5, Gutter Ballet. This is a very good album. I really like the songwriting on it. I really like the passion in the structures and the overall feel of the album. Well produced, great guitar work. Again, they're getting into the bigger grandiose vibe with the direction of the band here. It's a very solid record. I know it's obviously ranked higher than these other guys, and they're more in tune with what to say about this, but this is one I've listened to. I think Alex Fintonis in the chat, he sent this to me quite some time ago. It's a good album. I've listened to it numerous times. Very solid. Like I said, well put together, great structures, and there's a lot of very cool dynamics on this record. The songs go somewhere. They kind of take you on a twist that you might not expect all the time. I dig it. Very good album. They kind of lost the muse, I think, as they went on after that a little bit, but not as bad. It was a gradual decline for me, but yep.
Okay. All right. Number 4. All right. Finally, we're going to see Sirens. This is my number 4. This is the original cover. I know there's reissues out there with, kind of like the old thumbnail with my fat head in the middle of it. Good job, by the way, Alan. I love that thumbnail.
Thank you. But, it worked.
Yeah. So obviously, I've ranked this a little bit higher than Alan, and I would say the first part of this album and right up the first 4 tracks are absolute. As some of my buddies from the overseas from the Contact channel say, absolute banger. Sirens is. If I had to tell somebody, I'm going to describe Savatage's guitar sound and tone, listen to Sirens. Just the song.
Mm-hmm.
I just love that track. And Holocaust, great track.
Mm-hmm.
I think John's vocals are just phenomenal on that.
Mm-hmm.
Chris's guitar playing. I mean, the whole band. At this point, Johnny Lee Middleton isn't in the band yet, and as on Power of the Night, their first bass player, Keith Collins, was a bit of a weak spot for these guys. Actually on Power of the Night, Chris and John actually redid a bunch of the bass parts on Power of the Night, and then of course on Fight for the Rock they finally got Johnny Lee Middleton, who has been in the band since still to this day. But I would say, and the song Rage is super heavy. Check that one out. It actually has to me, it has Judas Priest vibes for sure. I can't argue too much with Alan on side B, but if you want to I do enjoy the song Scream Murder. I think it's a great tune. And Out on the Streets is not a heavy track by any means, but I don't mind it. It kind of flows pretty good, but just based on the first 4 tracks for me, Sirens, Holocaust, I Believe, and Rage, that would put this at number 4 just solely on that. And if you can see that face by the ship here, this is the original and their original Savatage logo before they went to the one that to this day. But there's my number 4.
All right.
All good points. Very good points. Let's see. Number 4 for me. Let's double check, make sure I'm not forgetting something. Yeah. All right. Number 4 for me. This is where I've put Dungeons Are Calling, which I've got on one of these old split CDs. It has Sirens with the old cover art that Darcy just mentioned, and then the turkey baster skull, as I like to call it, for the Dungeons artwork. these mini albums always just drive me a little bit nuts because it's a weird length format that you don't see very often. It's too long to call an EP and it's too short to call an album, but Darcy asked that we include it, and I think he's absolutely right too, because this has a real banger of a playlist. Dungeons Are Calling is a great track. By the Grace of the Witch is a really good one. Creepy guitar tone to it. Very catchy. Lots of hooks in the track. Visions, as you said, Darcy, is really good. Midas Night, like quite a bit. City Beneath the Surface is, of course, another one of their iconic classics that stayed in their live set forever. Every time they play that one live, it's just devastatingly heavy. Back in the day, John would they get to the end of that chorus, and John would just often chant, blood, 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 just over and over and over, just driving it into your skull. Really, really good. And then the Whip, another track, from that early Avatar EP on there too. So while it's very short, it's got a hell of a track list, which is why this one ended up a little higher than I would have initially guessed. It has a good track list, but when I'm comparing it, to Sirens and Power of the Night, like I mentioned, in my opinion, those albums both do have a lot of weak spots on this B side. There's not much that misses fires on this EP at all. Or mini album. God, I still don't know what to call the damn thing. Dungeons has no weak tracks. It's just really, really good start to finish. So it made it all the way up here to number 4.
People call Rain and Blood a full length, and that's under a half hour. So
it does have a lot more songs on it though than this has 6 songs. Feels a little short for an album in terms of tunes. Back then, now again, these days, you get an album and it has 3 songs and it lasts for 66 minutes and stuff like that. But back in this time frame, you were usually thinking, 8 songs, 8 songs or more, at least 35-ish minutes of music, for an album. So, I don't know. It's a pet peeve. The first Pretty Maids release falls in that same category. There's lots of others. But, Dungeons Are Calling, great release from the band, all the way to number 4. But Marty, what have you got it? Sorry, go ahead, Darcy.
I was just going to tell you, I don't know if I'm sure we've all been through this where an album cover, that one always reminded me, and I associated it with Killing Is My Business, that skull with the turkey baster or whatever you call it. But I like I said, I did not discover Savatage until probably around the Power of the Night album, and I shied away from some of these albums because the covers were they're just that fucking creepy. And that was one of them. That and Killing Is My Business. They look like, brother sister covers. Very primitive looking, but I'm sure we all shied away from a few covers and went back to them after or whatever. But
it's funny you call that a turkey baster. I look at that image and I cannot decide figure out what the hell that is. Do we even know what that is? It's
a syringe. It's a man-made syringe.
Oh, okay.
Just kind of replicating, the drugs going into your brain or whatever. That's kind of the point they were trying to prove, and kind of creep some people out, right? So,
like tryptophan from the turkey gets in your brain and makes you fall asleep after you eat on the holidays.
Makes you sleepy with your belt undone and your top button unbuckled. Yeah. All right. Where are we at here? We're at number 4.
Number 4.
My 4 is Power of the Night.
Okay.
This of the first 3 releases is an obvious shift. I think the Sirens and the Dungeons Are Calling, Savatage has a very lethal, cult-like metal sound, very intense and interesting. Here, they started to normalize that sound a little bit, like Darcy was saying, probably because the producer got their hooks into them a little bit. But this is still a really solid record for me. John sounds great. He's still in his element here for sure. He hasn't blown out his voice yet, but this is a very solid record. Like I said, a little bit more normal than the 2 that came before it, but I really like the songs. I like the energy of it. Power of the Night. It ranked a little higher for me because the first era of this band is definitely my favorite, but good record. but it's starting to change a little bit here for me.
No, I really like the point you made about, you said that's like the first big shift.
Yep.
You couldn't have said that any better. That is bang on.
All right.
All right.
You're
Where
up.
are we?
Number 4.
Number 3 for me now, right?
Number 3. I'm sorry. Yep. 3.
All right. I'm not going to lie. When this album first came out, I thought, what the fuck is going on here? And, but it grew on me really quick. But my number 3 is Streets, a rock opera. I just think this is this is their first full concept album, kind of about a fallen rock star, one kind of a rise. Sorry, he rose and then he fell again type of deal. Full story, concept album, but phenomenal. There is Chris's classic Charvel guitar on the back with the roses on it. And I would say this is where Paul O'Neill really, really put his stamp. The couple albums that I'll mention after this, it was coming. You could feel it, and there were signs of it. But this is where Paul really got involved. Lots of input. This is his original story. I think the original story actually was called Gutter Ballet, which is a name of one of their albums, but they kind of tweaked it and changed it to this. But strong songwriting on here. There's a few, little, like other concept albums like Operation Mindcrime, where you got a few little talking parts, things like that, little dialogue. But check out the title track, Streets, is phenomenal. I would say Ghost in the Ruins is my absolute favorite track on this album. Shining Moment of Chris Oliva. Believe, great song. Actually, and this is the reissue that I was just telling you guys about. They actually added a kind of a lost track on here called, very unique name. It's called Larry's Elbows. So it must be a character, it is a character pertaining to this story that moves it along at some point, but they chose to cut it out. But really solid album. 1991 this came out. They at this point they were on a true role in their career, so they kind of rolled the dice on this one, but I think it worked. This one divides fans. Some just do not like it. I'm of the fans that do really love it, to be honest with you. So there is my number 3, Streets, a rock opera from 1991.
All right. Alan.
All right. So down to 3. Number 3 for me is going to be Gutter Ballet. This is a transitional album. Everything before this, you can very easily call standard 80s American power metal. No doubts about it. Yes, they had their kind of own unique take on it with the dark and creepy and weird stuff, but it fits in that bin just fine. And on this album, they start to branch out. I mean, you can tell right away, just from the cover, the title, everything here tells you they're going for something a bit grander. And they don't do it on every song. They kind of, start to work it in slowly. I don't know if this was the first or second Savatage album I heard. I heard this and Streets pretty close together. Regardless, it's an album. There were parts of it I immediately liked, and there were parts that took a while to grow on me. But it's one that I always came back to and played it over and over. And this is one, though, I was a little surprised it ranked this high. But when lining it up against all the other albums this week and figuring out what to slot where, I'm just like, Gutter Ballet is just a really amazing album. They start off with a track that sounds just like the good old glory days before this, of Rage and War, very heavy, very dark. John doing that really nasty snarl, demented song about, terrorists and the airport, just, all the, crap going on in the news. But, then track 2, the title track, Gutter Ballet, it's very different. It's very ambitious. This is where they're you see the Paul O'Neill influence coming in.
Yeah,
that they're
for
doing
sure.
something conceptual. Again, a lot of people kind of shortcut and call it Broadway metal. Okay, but they're doing it really well, even though this is kind of their first stabs at something like this. Gutter Ballet is an amazing track. You've got some instrumentals. You've got When the Crowds Are Gone is an incredibly good track, very emotional, extremely well put together. Lyrically, it's really deep, very introspective. Random side note: in a college poetry class I had to take as a requirement thing, we had to bring in lyrics from a song, and this was the song I chose to bring lyrics in for. And a lot of the other people in the class were just like, really, there's like, damn, this is really, what song is this? What band is this? I want to hear this. Yeah, they were really blown away by it, just from a lyrical standpoint without hearing the music. You've got other stuff on here. Hounds is this really slow, doomy song almost that's got just layers of darkness to it, like in older classic Savatage, but slower. Mentally Yours, again, has this good catchy hook to it, really creepy vibe, works well. Summer Rain is another one of these kind of Broadway feature tracks, going for something much more sweeping. There was a bonus track. I don't know if it was just on the CDs, or I think it was CD and cassette, had the bonus track Thorzine Shuffle, which for me is maybe the weak track on the album. It's not that it's bad. It feels just a little out of place next to a lot of the rest of it for some reason. It's not bad. I like it a lot more now than I did when I first heard the album. But yeah, it's an interesting album. It marks that transition where they're starting to try to do something beyond the boundaries of normal 1980s American metal. And they do it very well. The story I've heard, was, Paul O'Neill, somehow saw the band, got to know the guys, and felt like they had a lot of potential, not just, as a heavy metal band, but just as musicians, as songwriters. He's like, these guys can do something more. Not more in the sense that heavy metal's not good enough, they're too good for heavy metal, but just that these guys are talented. John and Chris have enough talent to be bigger, to really branch out into other things. And this is, Paul starting to lead them in that direction. And they prove him right. The proof of concept right here out of the gate. The first time they try it, those bigger songs on this are just amazing. So nothing really weak about this album. You could do maybe without one of the little short instrumentals. You could leave Thorzine Shuffle off and save it for a B-side on a single, but really starting to nitpick at that point. It's a great album. I still come back to this album from time to time, and I can play this one through, and man, you get to something like When the Crowds Are Gone, and it's just a gut punch listening to that. Very, very hits really close to home emotionally. Great album. It's a divisive album. Some folks, they want every album to sound like Sirens or Hall of the Mountain King, and those are good. We're still got some of those to talk about, but this material, Savatage did great on this style of music too, and it really shines from the first time they tried it. So Gutter Ballet crawls all the way up to number 3 here for me.
Ryan dropped a cool little piece of trivia here. Let's not let the stream go by without mentioning that John Oliva, Jesus, produced the Nocturnus demo, The Science of Horror. I did not know that.
I had forgotten that. Ryan, thanks for pointing that back out. Yep. I had forgotten that. John, and that is something to branch out here too. Savatage, of course, were sort of a Tampa area band. They were quite supportive of other bands on that scene. Sometimes you hear these stories about bands, being kind of big-headed and not wanting to pay attention to others. The guys in Savatage were apparently always pretty cool and, hung out, helped other bands that were up and coming. The Tardy brothers, mentioned that, Savatage were a very positive influence on when they were teenagers and, trying to figure out how to put a band together and stuff. That both Savatage and Nasty Savage, they were the two big bands, in that area of Florida and both, members from both bands, Nasty Ronnie, the Oliver brothers, they were all very, they would take some of those guys under their wing a bit and help them out. They didn't blow them off when they asked for help or, advice about how to get a band started. So, and, so they always had, a good relationship, with the rest of the Florida heavy metal scene, it seems.
Apparently, John has been seen on stage with Obituary too. Someone said in the chat.
A festival thing in Florida some years ago, and I'm fuzzy on the details, so but I'll muck my way through it. They basically did sort of like they did like a Florida metal festival thing for a few days, and stages that they actually dubbed it like the Chris Oliver stage. To pay tribute to him, and they had they asked John, hey, is this cool? We'd like to do this. We'd like to have you come perform if you would. And John gave his blessing. He said, yeah, I'll do it. And apparently then he got a little, he almost backed out, but he did show up and did do a couple of songs at the festival. And the Tardis were just, really blown away. One of their, idols had kind of, come back and showed up, to put on the festival they put on. So even in more recent, and I don't know if that was, I'm guessing that was probably a good 10 years ago or more by now, but even into the 2000s, that John would still show up and help out folks from the local scene.
Right on. Okay, next for me, number 3 for me is The Dungeons Are Calling. I have it. It's a split on this reissue CD of Sirens. It's 3 for me because it's still Savatage being weird, interesting, and twisted. Very cool. John's vocals are, he has those shrieks that he throws in there. He does it more so on Sirens, but very enjoyable. It just gives this band a very unique flavor in the U.S. power metal scene of this era. This is 1984. As me and Alan started this whole journey off together, we talked about U.S. power metal. U.S. power metal is very different from European power metal. It's more working class style, but I love the weird twisted slithering riffs and the very cool solos, and John's voice just really puts the icing on the cake. It's an EP, but kind of wanted more, and this early era of the band is among my favorite for sure. They seemed like they had the most fire in them at that point and the most creative voice. I shouldn't say that, because I mean their music got a lot more complex and creative as they went adding the rock opera feel, but for straight up metal, these guys were really cool and doing something a bit different, and I love it. It's kind of hard not to have it high up in the ranking for me. All right, Darcy.
All right, so we're getting into the
nitty gritty.
All right, this was Alan's number 3. This is my number 2, Gutter Ballet. And you kind of nailed it. This is a huge transitional album for these guys. And I had alluded to this earlier. This is where Paul really put his stamp on. I would say this is like kind of a 50-50 album for me. It's got that, that operatic type of feel on some things, but there are some great heavy tracks on here. Just check out Of Rage and War, the opening track. The bass line that opens that song up is just, it's awesome. Very heavy. John's, his shrieking is, I'm not even going to attempt to do his shrieking. I was kind of practicing it today, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to make an asshole of myself. I am not going there.
Come on.
No one can shriek the way that man shrieks.
No
one can do it.
here.
No one can.
You got the great tracks like Gutter Ballet, When the Crowds Are Gone, more leaning towards what would come on Streets and future albums. But if you want to check out some really more of the heavier stuff, Hounds, awesome song. The Unholy, Mentally Yours. I know it's a repetitive chorus, but read along with those lyrics. It is about a guy named Timmy who just snaps. Okay, put it that way. He even doused the cat in gasoline, and Yeah, not a good guy, but this is a great mixture of heavy and elegant, very elegant album overall. Love the artwork on here. This is the second time they used Gary Smith, which you'll see on an album that's coming, but we kind of all know that. But anyways, great album. This was my my actual second new release that I bought. This was 1989. Bought this on release day and loved it ever since. And yeah, there's my number 2, Gutter Ballet.
Number 2.
Excellent choice. Excellent choice. All right. So my problem at this point is this is a band that has made 2 of my favorite albums of all time. And now I've got to rank them. Thanks, Darcy. But no, it's hard, but at the same time, it's not, because I have a clear favorite, even though both of these last 2 albums are 10 out of 10, A+++ albums for me. But I've got to rank them, and I know how I'm going to rank them. Number 2 is Hall of the Mountain King. This is Savatage's finest hour from their pre-Broadway metal days. They bounce back from the sort of commercial disaster misfire of Fight for the Rock, and they absolutely release one of the truly classic U.S. heavy metal albums of the entire decade. People can throw out other titles, and I'll put this up against anything they throw out there from this era. It starts, with the very, kind of creepy 24 hours ago. Again, just those crazy vocals of John setting atmosphere the way very few other people ever could. Beyond the Doors of the Dark, the song title alone tells you how that's going to play out. Legions, is dark, it's strong, it's epic, it's anthemic. Strange Wings is the track a lot of people seem to point out that they don't like. I think it's brilliant. I like it. The lyrics are, maybe not quite up to par, but I really love the song. It's very catchy. It fits in really nice. Of course, then you get, the prelude and leading into the title track, which this band has, so many of those songs that you're just absolute mainstays in the live set. You've got to have Sirens. You've got to have City Beneath the Surface. You've got to have Power of the Night. You've got to have Hall of the Mountain King. Just, timeless stuff. And it doesn't let up. The Price You Pay is a great song. White Witch is a really good, fast, kind of frantic one. Last Dawn and then Devastation wraps it up. Just absolute crusher. Amazing album. This album I have owned for around, we're pushing 30 years on this same copy of Mountain King, and it still gets regular play. There's a lot of albums in this house, thousands, a lot of them can sit for years without ever getting a chance to come off the shelf.
Yep.
I doubt there has ever been a full year that's gone by that Mountain King hasn't gotten a few plays. That album always comes off the shelf. It always gets played start to finish. It always gets played a few times before it goes back to the shelf.
Yeah.
It is as good as any American metal album of that era. One of these days, maybe Marty and I will sit down and do something like, our top 10 favorite albums of all time kind of stream. It would be challenging, but fun.
It would be challenging.
Hall of the Mountain King will be in that. When I draft up, the list and have to start choosing, Hall of the Mountain King will be one of the first things I scribble down. Whether it makes the top 10, I don't know, but it will be one of the very first things that comes to mind when I've got to start picking through things and deciding what were my favorite heavy metal albums of the 1980s. No doubt. It hurts to put it at number 2, but I'll talk about number 1, and there are definite reasons why it is number 2 in my listing.
Okay, number 2, Sirens for me. Again, they start right out of the gate being heavy, twisted, weird, but very, very, very cool. I know Alan said the second half for him kind of loses its gumption a bit, but man, it's just so solid and unique. It's a great, bold statement to start off in 1983. No one really sounded like them. Very cool. I love the structure on this stuff. It's just, John's voice is just awesome. It's just awesome, unique. They got the fire. And it burned out kind of quick after this for me, but that's my number 2. Sirens.
No, good choice. Good choice.
You're
All
up,
right.
Darcy.
Well, we know what's coming. And I had said earlier that my introduction to the band was Power of the Night, but my first brand new release, and I should have dug out my cassette copy. I still have my original cassette copy of Hall of the Mountain King that I bought on release day, but this was always been my number one, and always will be. I don't see them coming out with anything better than this. And this is one of those albums that you associate with it, where you were, what time it was in your life, and so many memories with this came out in 1987. Here in Canada, we had you have MTV. In the States, we had Much Music. I remember seeing the video for, the title track, Hall of the Mountain King. And as corny as it was, I was just like, this band just doesn't sound like anyone else. It was, I've had moments like that before, when I first heard like Queensryche, The Warning, I was just like, holy shit, no one sounds like this. And Savatage was one of those bands for me. Love the cover artwork.
Thanks, Simon. Sorry to interrupt you, Darcy.
Hey, no, it's okay. Hey, Simon. This is first time they used Gary Smith for the cover. So he's done 4 or 5 albums for Savatage. Awesome back cover. There is just not a weak track on here. I don't know, maybe shit, I don't know. 24 Hours Ago, great lead off track. It's very similar vibe to Gutter Ballet. When you listen to Of Rage and War, you get that same, but just John shrieking. And again, I'm not attempting that shit, but he's awesome. Beyond the Doors of the Dark, Legions, love that song. Strange Wings is definitely a highlight for me. The title track, not a song I ever get bored of. I could listen to Hall of the Mountain King anytime. And like Alan said, this is an album that probably still gets played, it's off the shelf at least 2 to 3 times per year. It would be in my personal top 20 of all time.
Jesus, Ryan.
I don't know exactly where, but hey, Ryan.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, Ryan.
The Price You Pay, White Witch, very cool song. And I love how this ends. Devastation is, just how John says devastation. It's just
Total
killer. Just total devastation. It's just, devastating album. My number 1, and like I said, always will be, but Hall of the Mountain King.
Yep. Agreed. Alan. Ryan, thank you again. You're too kind. You guys are all awesome. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you quite a bit. Let's see. Tim just mentioned he was surprised that Hall of the Mountain King wasn't Alan's first pick. Like I say, it's these top 2 are 10 out of 10 albums for me. But at the end of the day, Streets is number 1 for me. This album, there are certain albums you have emotional connections to because of what was going on in your life when you discovered the album, and this is one of those things for me. Mountain King is a glorious album. It's an amazing album. Like I said, I still play it on a pretty regular basis after I got it in 94, 95. So 28 years or so later. But Mountain King is an album I love listening to. Streets is an album I had to listen to. This was, I think, pretty certain the second CD I ever bought. Bought it in the fall of 1992, right after moving away from home for the first time, going to college. I went to a weird college. Again, folks who have listened before know my backstory. I grew up in a very small town here in the South, but I wanted a very specific major when I went to college. Nothing in that area offered it. Most kids from my high school did not go to college. We had 300 kids graduate. Out of those 300, 30 went to college. And out of those 30, I think it was 25 went to a community college that was within a 30-minute drive. In that era, you didn't leave that area. You just didn't. I went to a college that was over 500 miles away in another time zone. And it completely, I mean, my parents were kind of cool with it, but my dad told me later, he's like, we always thought you would back out at the last second and just go to like one of the local places. We never thought you'd actually go through with it. This is like, okay, I don't know how to respond to that. The other kids in my school could not fathom what I was doing. They were, I literally one day had, like, a girl come up lunch. She's like, are you really going to this school like in Ohio? I was like, yeah. She just kind of looked at me and shook her head. She couldn't fathom going away that far from our town. Our senior class, senior class trips, some senior classes go to, bright lights, big city, save up for years and stuff. We tried to convince our senior class to go to like, there's one of those amusement parks over in the capital of Virginia. Boy, I'm forgetting everything right now. Richmond, Six Flags kind of place. All these student officers shot down the trip because it would have required an overnight stay, and they couldn't imagine being away from home overnight. This is the kind of area I grew up in. And I go 500 miles away to college, and my folks, pack me up. They take me there. They drop me off. My dad's like, I guess we'll see you around Thanksgiving. Don't fuck up. So it's like, okay, no pressure.
Sage words of advice.
Yeah.
I'm 17 years old. I wasn't even 18 yet. Had like $100 to my name. Didn't have a car. Didn't have a driver's license. That's another completely weird story. But these glasses are not just because they look sexy on me. They are functional as well. So yes, we're talking real stranger in a strange land kind of situation going on here. And, quickly found the local, indie record store. I had, heard some Savatage songs before this and, on compilations and really liked them. Yeah, picked this up, and this was just kind of, it connected with me in ways, that everybody's got one or two of those albums that connects with you in a certain way.
Yep.
Like Darcy said, there's this tale, it's the hero's journey. It's the classic hero's journey from literature. Somebody, coming up from nothing, going off, bright lights, big city, biting off a hell of a lot more than they can chew, crashing really hard, and then having to dig themselves out of that pit. Exactly. And not making my, first year of college, into this, grand epic saga or anything, but it really paralleled, some of the stuff, I was having to adjust to with, very different culture, in the Midwest versus, growing up in Appalachia. Being completely on my own, there was no one to fall back on, no one to call if I needed something. I'm out here wandering the streets alone, just like this fucking guy they're singing about in this story. it connected on a lot of very, very deep levels. Taking away even the personal element, I think it's easily their best concept album. I always kind of sensed, even though Paul wrote it, it was probably at least, maybe a little bit semi-autobiographical for John, if not other members of the band. Up to the Gutter Ballet era, as you mentioned earlier, Darcy, these guys partied hard.
Oh, yeah.
I remember a very old interview with Dave Mustaine, and, someone asked me, like, Mustaine and Megadeth, of course, were legendary for just being, completely fucked out of their gourds in the late 80s, So Far, So Good, So What era in particular. And somehow, it came up like, how did, other bands react when you toured with them back then because you were so crazy? And it came up, Mustaine had mentioned, like, the one band we toured with back then who could keep up with us when it came to party after the show was Savatage. He's like, those guys could match us step for fucking step every single night on the road. And you kind of got the sense that probably, was starting to wear on the band a little bit when you get into like this gutter ballet and streets there, that there's some soul searching going on in these lyrics and the way the performances, that the band is starting to feel the costs of some of the decisions they've made over those past years. So it was true very much for what they experienced. And, again, it had a real meaningful connection for me. For folks, if you're not familiar with it, it does, if it sounds familiar, it does parallel The Crimson Idol by Wasp. Again, very similar kind of tale there, the rise and the fall. It being having those autobiographical elements in it by Blackie and such, and that again is a great concept album as well. But yeah, this one, it's a masterpiece. There's a lot of people that don't like this album. It has a horribly low score on Metal Archives, which I cannot get that at all. The heavy songs on here are pretty good. Jesus Saves was a video that got routine airplay on Headbangers Ball. People dug that track. But yeah, it does a very good job of telling the story, but the songs can also stand up well individually. For me, that's often the mark of a really good concept album. Is the story good, but can I listen to individual pieces of it and still get something out of it? A lot of times it's one or the other, but not both. This works on both axes really well. And yeah, you get something like Ghost in the Ruins. When you get to those last few, like, If I Go Away, where it's, literally like, does anyone fucking care if I'm alive or not? I mean, that's what the song comes down to. It's pretty heavy shit. You get into, the agony and ecstasy, heal my soul. I mean, it's, the character, pleading, begging for help. And you can imagine, the band trying to deal with addictions and stuff like that. Yeah, again, it's they're singing from a point of experience here. And yeah, you get to the last track pair, Somewhere in Time and Believe, and it's one of the things. To this day, I will choke up sometimes if I play those songs. It's incredibly well done. Lyrically, it's amazing. As good as Mountain King is, it's just a damn fine, amazing heavy metal album. This is a fucking work of art, and I will keep it and I will play it as long as I'm around. And that Streets, if I ever have to do that top 10 rankings thing, Streets is in that conversation as well. There have been times, I don't know if I would right now, there have been times I've had Streets ranked as my top heavy metal album of the entire 1990s. That's the level I put that album at. And others aren't going to have it maybe that high, and that's okay. I get it. It connects with me on a very deep level based on what I was doing in my life when I discovered that album. Like Darcy said, those things have a big impact on you, and they stay with you for a very long time.
Yeah, they sure do.
So that is a hell of a lot more information than you probably needed about me and my opinion on Streets. But there you go. So Marty,
but I love hearing your stories.
I love it too, and this is a hard act to follow.
Yeah.
Over to you, Marty. What you got?
Come on, Marty, let's go.
Let me tell you this. Many years ago, I was a much younger man. I was down visiting a close friend of mine in Kalamazoo, Michigan. My wife told me to go down and don't fuck up while I was down there. So I was down there for the weekend, drinking beer and going record shopping. We walked into a Music Express, bought this record for $4 in the used bin. And let's just put this into perspective. This album follows this shimmering turd.
Yeah,
it is
such a weird sequence.
This album, this is the band's finest moment. I understand Alan's connection to Streets. That's very cool. But this is as good as they got. I mean, as far as the early years, it's a shining monument. I mean, just the song alone, Hall of the Mountain King, that alone is worth the price of admission here for me. But this whole album is awesome. It is just so good, so fiery, so passionate. It's just a great record, a great heavy metal record from the US. This came out in 1987. I wish I had a deeper connection to it and connect at a much deeper level, but for the longest time, this is the only Savatage I owned and thought I needed, to be honest, until I started acquiring stuff last year. I got the bulk of my collection, 99% of this collection last year. So I mean, I've had this for years and I've had the other stuff a year. So having poked around at their catalog a little bit after this, because I mean, something this good, I really wish that they would have done 2 more of these. I think they had it in them to do another one, at least as good as this in this style. It's just really awesome US power metal. It's unique, it's powerful, it's well written. The guitar work is outstanding, and so is this airbrushed caricature of the band. The hair is, I just want to touch it. I want to run my fingers through it, to be honest. It's beautiful. But yeah, this is my number 1. It's such a solid record. And if you're, don't know much about Savatage, I would say jump in here, because this is really, of their early era, the best of the best. And they got a lot more. They went the way of Meatloaf a bit with the piano and all the, the orchestration, the rock opera, which is fine, which is cool, but it's a whole nother level. But it's a style shift, and it was never as good as this, as far as I'm concerned. But this is awesome. Great record. That's my number 1 for sure. Probably the obvious pick, but it is my pick nonetheless.
It would be with any other band, it would easily be the pick. Yeah.
Great choice. And at the time, a lot of people don't know that, after Fight for the Rock, which, turd, maybe, whatever you said.
No, everybody's opinion is cool. Everybody hears musically differently, but wow. I was surprised how bad that was.
That was 1986. The band was in debt big time. Along came Paul O'Neill. He gave them some money to kind of pay off some debts and kind of erase the slate, and he said, go in the studio and make a Savatage album, and they did. And masterpiece. It's always been my number 1. I could never, I'd always recommend that one, but I feel like, obviously Alan has a great connection to Streets, and I totally understand that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I love that album too. It's my number 3, so it's definitely up there. And yeah.
And that's a good point about Paul O'Neill, Darcy. Something just to follow up with. He passed away a few years ago, but he has been noted by other individuals as always being a very, he was very well off from whatever else he did. And other folks have mentioned he was always a very nice and very generous person. Again, the obituary guys tell a story about him. They were doing an album release party at Moorsound for one of their later albums. I don't remember which one offhand. And it just so happened that, Paul O'Neill was in the studio next door working with, it may have been John on, recording something. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course, there's an album release party going on next door. They're getting drunk and carrying on. And Paul came over next door and was like, what the hell's going on in here? And they're all kind of like, oh shit, those guys were trying to work next door. Like, sorry,
Dad.
But what they're just like, oh, this, shit, sorry, we're getting, the new obituary albums, official release party thing. And Paul was just like, oh, well, hold on then. And, I get, there was somebody there, he, turned to him, talked to him, they went out there and came back later on with just like, I don't know the correct term here, but, crate after crate of like Dom Perignon champagne, and was just like, if this is an album release party, let's do this thing right, and just gave it to them. And they're like, oh, cool, booze, and so they're just drinking the shit and all this stuff. They didn't really know how expensive that crap is, but they found out later. They're just like, how much is that stuff? And then they started thinking like, how many bottles did he give us? And they're just like, holy crap, he apparently just literally spent thousands. He just dropped thousands of dollars on the spot, for these guys to help celebrate their album release because they were making too much noise in the studio next to where he was trying to work. And just like, hey, go for it, guys. Here, congratulations. That's awesome that you've got a new album coming out. So it's just one of these stories I've heard, about, it's kind of, in hindsight, sometimes I think a lot of Savatage fans are a bit hard on Paul because, over the years, as we talked about tonight, those concept albums got very samey. They didn't always, recapture that magic like the first one or two did. But he did a lot of good for the band, absolutely, and apparently, did a lot of good things for other people along the way too. So, a tip of the hat to Paul O'Neill, who passed away in 2017.
Yeah, but you said it best earlier. You said, Paul, can you maybe go do something else for and that's not a slight against Paul, because there's many bands that are, I'm sorry, you do not need to use the same producer 7 albums in a row. Let's just change it up. Maybe get a different engineer or something in there. But I think, the latter half of their discography and some of that were lower in our rankings we were all sitting there wishing, hey, can you just make an album of just straight up songs again? Maybe make obviously you'd wish for another, like Marty said, I wish they would have made 2 more Hall of the Mountain Kings. But I would have took another Power of the Night type of deal, or another Sirens, something like that. Just with standalone songs, no concept, no story, just straight ahead, 10 tracks, 44 minutes. I'll take it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Hey, Paul, Paul, meet Obituary. Meet Paul. Why don't you guys get to know each other here?
Chris, they wouldn't do Andy Sneap. They got their yes man producing their albums. I do want to touch back on what Glenn said here. Appreciate the shit out of you guys. Always fun and interesting. And you guys have gotten me on some paths towards bands I have either overlooked or ignored or have not heard of. Keep the metal burning. You know what? We're going to keep the metal burning. And we really appreciate that, because that's why we're here. It's fun. And if we can share the passion and what opinions we have with you guys, if it helps you find something new, that's the whole point. That's why we do it. It's a lot of fun. That's cool, we really appreciate all you folks for joining us every Friday. We've got a very cool community going here, and it rules. You all rule. Thank you so much.
Very well said, Glenn. That is awesome.
And Darcy, thank you so much for joining us. We did it. We got through this collection. It was fun, a lot of fun, and you're going to be coming back. So let us know when your next Fridays are available in the months to come.
Think of some topics that you might want to cover with us, and we'll find one that we can both talk semi-intelligently about with you. And yes, we'll do it again. Absolutely.
I just thank you guys for having me on. I am flattered. I am just a humble guy who loves to talk about metal, and I don't like I said in way back when I started my channel, I don't have people in everyday life to talk about this stuff with. And, I'm just glad I'm glad 4 years later that I'm sitting here with you guys tonight, and loving every minute of it.
Well, we appreciate you.
Yeah. I just wanted to follow up on this comment from Autumn. That's very nice. And, I wanted to follow up on this one in particular because Autumn's one of the people that really encouraged me to give YouTube a try. I'd watched a lot of, Marty's streams with the guys during the pandemic stuff. And, Marty was kind of digging me on about it. And I was kind of like, hey, it might be fun. I don't know. But Autumn was also one who was really supportive of that. And was just like, just go for it. You seem like you'd be really good at it and stuff. So, thank you to Autumn. It's cool that, if we're helping you, that's awesome, because you also definitely helped me go ahead and wade into the YouTube verse more. So thank you very much, Autumn.
Awesome. And everybody, please go check out Darcy, 6 Strings 9 Lives. The link is in the description. We really appreciate it. And thanks again for coming. Next week, we've got Cine Arcadia Productions coming. Tom, who's in the chat, maybe now, he was earlier tonight. I think we're going to be ranking the Solitude Eternus collection albums.
Be talking about them and their history. Yep. Excellent. classic doom metal band that doesn't get the props they deserve a lot of the time. So that's going to be a fun one. Looking forward to it. Been wanting to talk about that band for a long time, and talking about it with Cine Arcadia, aka Tom, should be an absolute blast.
And go check out his channel as well. He's very, he just started getting in front of the camera here, as far as I know. And very fun. Mine are too. But yes, everybody, thank you again. And y'all have a good night. And we will be back Wednesday for a glorious album club discussion of the new Scorpions album, which I have not listened to yet because I've been in Savatage Purgatory. But we will be there for sure. And everybody take care. Again, Darcy, thanks.
Hey, thanks everybody. Thanks for stopping by.
Everybody have a good
Don't
weekend.
forget to get your shirt.
Oh yeah. Heavy Metallurgy shirts. If you haven't got one yet, they're still available.
They're pretty nice.
And again, if you ordered a Nachachuan record, I'm one guy. I got a friend that comes and helps me every couple days a week. But it's basically me packaging orders. So give a fat old guy a break. They're coming. I got a big shipment going out tomorrow.
Burrito? Where's my burrito? Where's my burrito? Where's my burrito?
It'll be worth the wait, folks. It's an amazing album. If it doesn't hit in the top albums of the year list, I am going to throw shit. But anyway, everybody, thanks so much. Take care. We'll see you Wednesday.
Wednesday it is.